And we are live. G'day, guys. Good to see you all. Let me just get right to the top. And Luke's in first. Oh, God. I'm not old enough for that to remind me of. Okay. That's a new title for all you wannabes out there. God. And reading up on breast milk. Sure, why are you reading up on breast milk? It's got a load of good stuff. Yeah, depends what sort of baby you are and how much you want to suckle. Don't know what the DB dude was so fascinated with it causing diabetes. Weirdo. I don't know. There are weirdos out there. Yep. There is definitely probably quite a few weirdos. I know there are some bodybuilders that actually keep a pregnant girl on side to basically have access to their milk. Yeah, there are really some weirdos out there. I shall. Yes. The world is full of them. What are you doing, T1? No control. I mean, crack the whip on that bird brain. God almighty, you can't let him off the leash or, to pick himself to death. Exactly, Richard. I agree. The coffee, the elixir. I wouldn't call it the elixir of life. That would be going a bit too far. Sort of a habit more than anything. Luckily, I've got the genetics for it. So, and it is early. It's 10:30. I haven't actually started drinking. It's still here, as you can see, and I haven't even touched it. So, 11 o'clock. My first sip will be at 11 o'clock when I usually break my fasts. So, all my time-restricted feedings, to be more precise. Oh, that's what he's done. Damn. That would be painful. In what sort of position was he? That would even be scarier. Good to see Augusto. G'day, Daniel. There's Harit as well. Good to see you, mate. It's one of the. It's not a big percentage out of. Remember when I did that the actual video back then? I don't want to use the name because you get affected by the Google AI, but it was one of the actual symptoms that some people were getting. And it just basically because there are ACE2 receptors in the gut as well. And it just seems some people are more vulnerable or more susceptible. I'll give you an example. There is actually a gene. So if you've got the gene for the that actually when you get let's say some sort of viral infection or whatever, There's the norovirus. It's called the the people that go on cruises, the cruise ship diarrhea, as it's called, or the cruise ship virus, which is the norovirus, and it tends to hit people who have got that susceptibility, genetic susceptibility in the gut. So if I suspect if I get the actual this one, because I do have that genetic susceptibility, I will probably end up getting this sort of problem, but I suspect others that don't have that specific genetic mutation are probably not going to. So that's why it's a small percentage. So if you've got that, I usually recommend people don't go on cruises, and if they're more susceptible. I mean, I've been susceptible like to barley belly and all sorts of bloody things. So you tend to be a bit more susceptible. I've learned to basically salt my food far more. And because nowadays I'm not on a high carb diet, it's a less of an issue, salting. Yeah, so otherwise you end up waterlogged on a high carbohydrate diet. Yep, because of the high insulin. Yeah, so I suspect that's part of it. It's hard times. Breast milk is available fresh from the mother. Fuck me. Some of you guys, God almighty, desperados, get on the nipple. What are you girls going to say about this? I mean, you should have a field day with these guys. I don't. It's probably going to degenerate into some sort of comical sort of thing, I suspect. So we'll probably have a morning comical day, me and Bart. So because most of the actual science was done in the Eastern Europe, and it's actually in Russian. So I'm not going to sit and translate a whole lot of Russian documents or research, because it's still in Russian. I haven't actually been able to find any English translations. So yeah, we're not going to do that. But we'll talk about, because what happens is the child will take from its mother deuterium. It'll actually will suck it out. And actually, a lot of diseases reverse in the mother as well when she's breastfeeding. So, and it's used as a growth factor. So it's, I mean, also the kids have a lot of brown adipose tissue, so brown fat, and that's why they don't feel the cold. So it's a protective thing, and so they have a lot of uncoupling of their mitochondria. So that's another reason why the deuterium, the high deuterium, doesn't really cause them any really issues or health issues in the long run. So it's used as a quick growth spurt, and after that it sort of diminishes, So, and it's usually in the sort of the highest amount you'll find in the early parts of the first milk, stuff like that. Now, a lot of people swear by that, the first milk of calves and stuff like that. Now, while it's very healthy in sort of enzymes, lactoferrin and all sorts of other things, I do have that sort of, if you're on a low carbohydrate, low deuterium diet, it's probably less of an issue. But still, I'd put a bit of a question mark on all some of these claims that people make. But, that's me. But again, people can say, well, I've got anecdotes, and that's true, because when it comes to really strong science in the specific area of breast milk or first milk or whatever, there's not much, So, the only science that we've got is basically some of the nutrient profile. That's it. So, at the end of the day, I can only just, as I said, a lot of these sort of things, we just have anecdotes, unfortunately. So we can only go on archaeological evidence, the N15, isotope analysis, the differences. I mean, only these things we can argue with solid science and solid information. Bloody hell, Harry. Nearly scared me. A third boob just now. The loud voice, unexpected booming out of my computer. Okay. Okay. You mean the tit statement, or okay? Do I scare that easy? Oh. Hi, Christina. I suspect that's about bird brain, roast bird, missing in action. Yes, yes, yes. G'day, mate. I just noticed you subscribed, one of my new subscribers. Good to see you here. We basically are lighthearted, and we like to do a lot of sciencey stuff or ask a lot of questions as well. But we keep it pretty lighthearted as well. We don't go too serious on everything. So, Harry, does having a urine pH of 8 for days, weeks on end open a person up to a bladder or kidney infection from bacteria overgrowth? Do pathogen bacteria thrive in high pH conditions? Yeah, some of the pathogenic ones. Also, when you're dumping high levels of, when there's high levels of pH, it's also potential. Well, I'm not saying that it is, but usually people that have got cancer, the tend to basically have more lactic acid production, which the cancer cells will produce, and they tend to also displace and change the pH and force out a higher level of so by changing the sort of the acidity levels, what you get is you get more excretion of higher pH levels, where when you've got better pH in the blood, you tend to be, your urine tends to be more acidic. So when you're healthier, you basically urine tends to be slightly more acidic, or eating animal products tends to be more acidic, which is a good thing. So I would get it checked, because it could be a pathogen issue, but at the same time, it could be something more serious. So I would definitely get it checked. I can't really tell you what it is unless you've actually checked. Anyway, so I hope that's not you, but I mean, pathogens can cause that as well. There's a lot of factors that can cause this. If you're consuming a lot of things like baking powder or baking soda or stuff like that, or whatever baking soda or stuff like that, for whatever crazy reason, I don't know why you would be doing it, or certain other substances in your diet. I don't know what those things are. Your body naturally wants to, in certain tissue, wants to maintain a certain level of pH, and so if you've got too many alkaline substances you're putting in, it'll try to get rid of them. So it could be that. Could be a simple thing that you're just putting too much alkaline stuff in, and the body wants to get rid of it because it wants to get back to a certain level of maintain a certain level of homeostasis. So yeah, but again, it could be bacterial, it could be viral, more than likely bacterial. But again, could be something worse, as I said, but you'd have to check. Hopefully it's not. G'day, Honest. Good to see you here. Yeah, I've actually heard that. That it does have antimicrobial properties and all that, but and it's has more an effect if it's a bacteriological based diarrhea. But if it's not bacteriological, it's like a viral, which is what I was mentioning earlier, like the norovirus, the current virus and other things like that, then it won't work, the oregano stuff. So it has more effects on bacteriological ones. So yeah, just keep that in mind. You just basically sometimes just have to put up with it and just get it to clear out of your system, which is unfortunate, but there's not much with viral type induced diarrhea. Trust me, it's a hassle. I've endured a number of viral related diarrhea episodes in my past. I'm actually less susceptible nowadays, which is good, because I'm not eating a species inappropriate diet. But when I was eating a species inappropriate diet, I had a lot of gut issues. And I was really susceptible to viruses. When I got the flu, I used to hit me in the gut all the time. Now I get the flu and it doesn't. So I don't know. Maybe the diet actually is slightly protective, but that's just another anecdote. No science. So just keep that in mind. We heard about loss of taste and smell. Yep, that's some of the symptoms for a loss of hearing. Yeah, there's been some cases of loss of hearing as well. So yeah, but again, we don't know whether there are specific vulnerable groups and genetics that make them vulnerable or not for some of this sort of stuff. So while it seems the taste and smell thing affects much larger amounts of people, so that is probably something which is not clearly genetic, but something that is actually affecting, where it's coming through those initial mucosal layers, which is the beginning of your respiratory system, which is your nose and your mouth, and it's probably affecting it's penetrating the ACE2 receptors in the mouth and in the nose, and it's probably affecting those organs in terms of being able to taste and smell properly. So, and I suspect that's what's happening, and it's quite a well-established thing. But when it comes to some of the other sort of symptoms, like hearing and stuff like that, I suspect that may be some genetic pathway, because there are people that can lose their hearing due to viruses. That's well documented in the literature. So maybe these people are susceptible to this virus as well. Don't know, Time will tell, more science and more research in the Jared, good to see you, mate.
Can't even count on you finishing your thought or your sentence before adding me into the chat when I join.
I'll get feedback otherwise if I don't plug in.
I feel like I need to pretend that I've already joined, and I'm just waiting for you to say, "Good to see you, mate," as soon as I hit enter broadcast studio, because you're going to add me in like that every time.
Sometimes I'm faster than other times. Depends.
That carnivore diet, Harry, it keeps you too on the ball. That's my complaint. That's what I'm saying.
Yes, but also it depends on how much sleep. Carnivore diet can't correct. Staying up too late, and I tend to be a bit of a night owl, and I even have the genetics for being a bit of a night owl. So there are genetics. Is there
genetics for that? I didn't know that.
Yeah, there are genetics. So some other time I'll actually go through it and I'll actually show, but there are. So
I need to get a genetic test done, because I would be absolutely fascinated to know the things that you would infer from that.
Look, there's a lot of things. It's like, for instance, when last week when we were chatting about linoleic acid and sort of those sort of issues, there are some people like myself who have got genes that can convert linoleic acid to arachidonic acid much faster than others. And so it's less of a problem. Maybe this old geezer who was consuming 17.5 grams of mostly omega-6s in terms of consuming 25 eggs a day, maybe he had those genetics as well. So maybe, if you don't have those genetics, you shouldn't basically go for those higher levels, because there's a study. I need to do that video actually, because I don't want to actually give away too much, but it actually does show the differences between rats and their conversion and humans. And that's really important because that's pertinent to human diet and rat diet, those sort of differences. The sort of arguments that Paul's making with a lot of the rat studies. As far as I'm concerned, rat studies are not applicable to humans, and the rat shell largely has a lot of linoleic acid in from plants, oils, because they mix plant oils and all that. And just because you're increasing, then you add additional pork or tallow or other things, yes, more saturated fat is going to be slightly more protective because you're going to have less of those types of omega-6s. But at the end of the day, the difference is going to be minor between the two. But they go, oh, look here, But I'm going, hold on, First of all, they don't have the same conversion characteristics with humans. Second of all, you're not taking into consideration the other confounding variables of the other parts of the diet that these animals are consuming. And you're adding these other things, where I can show a study that clearly shows just bacon, nothing else. No other chow, no other stuff, just bacon. And it shows a complete different result. That's important. And that's in rats. And even there, I'm not basically drumming, beating the drum and saying, oh, look, but I'm using that as an example to contrast with all the other rat studies that Paul's used. So anyway, we had a bit of a chat last week. I need to do that video, I know, to basically provide ammo for people. And it's not because I want to have a go at Paul. I actually sub to Paul, and he's got great information. He's a really good, source of information. But I think he needs to separate the difference between some of the genetics that are differences between rats and humans, and also the differences in terms of when it comes to the sources, and that's important.
I agree that I don't think that it's optimal to be consuming meat, and especially fat, coming from animals that were fed massive amounts of grain and soy that are completely unnatural to what that animal would have had in nature.
Yeah. And also
there's a separate argument from inferring that chicken and pork are inherently bad.
Precisely, and that's where I have issues, where that sort of blanket generalized statement, and so and that's so. I'll keep that in mind, Augusto. I can use somebody for those sort of things. But getting back to what we were saying, so yeah, I'm still basically saying that you need the science in humans, and there's butter.
Yes, butter is in
heat.
Hoping
in what?
She's in heat.
Okay.
She's not a spayed female yet, so she's wandering around hoping to find a little action.
You're a horny pussy then.
Well, if you notice me muting and unmuting my microphone, it's because she's howling in the background, and I'm doing my best not to be distracting for the information you're providing.
Yeah, I can hear. Okay, and there are limits to the amount of liver one can consume weekly to avoid A and copper toxicity. No, actually, I remember in the late 70s when I was in Greece, living on the West Coast, people were consuming liver on a nearly every second day. Some people even on a daily basis.
Yeah, I think you'd have to try very hard to get too much. I'm not even sure it's possible to get too much in the context of the whole food, honestly.
I don't.
The only example of that people point to is Frank Tufano, and he had been consuming like pounds of foie gras, of duck liver.
I know. Look, Frank does a lot of strange things.
Yeah,
and he, at the time, I was trying to help him, but he wouldn't listen, and then I told him to take some to correct like alipoic acid, because there was science based on to fix any liver problems, to heal a liver. And I said, well, do that. And he bitched and moaned how expensive it was. And I said, mate, I mean, if you've caused yourself a problem, I said, have you really checked some of these sort of things? And he said, no. And I said, because he hadn't even actually, at the time, he hadn't even actually checked. But he was complaining and bitching online that he had the issue, but he hadn't even checked. And I'm going, what the fuck, And I said, well, you need to get yourself checked before you start poking yourself with all sorts of things. So, I mean, and then he basically went on a rant that it's not all this. It's basically do you know what most people around the world actually suffer from? They don't suffer from a zinc toxicity. They suffer from, most people are deficient in zinc. Most people suffer from a copper toxicity, because they're getting too much copper from plants and not enough zinc. That's what most people around the world, that is the bigger problem rather than the zinc toxicity. It's a very rare thing, So, because you've even got copper in muscle meat. So you're not going to, it's crazy sort of stuff in that regard. And then again, are you getting enough MK4? If you're eating liver, you're getting MK4. There's plenty of it in liver, in organ meats and all that. But the thing that most traditional populations do is they mix all their organs. They don't just eat liver. They tend to eat, like kukuretsi in Greece is basically all the different organs. And I've actually remember when I showed the grill philosophy guys who were actually making kukuretsi from all the different organ meats and stuff like that.
That was really cool.
That is exactly how we actually eat. So you're getting a mixed, much more richer. You're getting coenzyme Q10 from the hearts. You're getting a whole lot of mixer. You're getting all different profiles from all these different organ meats. So I actually believe in, combining different sources in that regard. I better let T1, unblock him. Yes. So yeah, and that's the thing. I've never heard traditional people that are consuming liver even on a daily basis. We're not talking about massive quantities. They're having small amounts, and like a serving. That's all you need. That's fine. It's not going to cause you any problems whatsoever.
Yeah, there's a school of thought in the carnivore diet that doesn't get touched on a lot in Bart's community, I think. But I think there's a lot of value to be spoken for intuitive eating when your palate has been sensitized properly to
exactly
the foods that you need. And the reason I say that is that liver is very satiating to me very quickly. I don't feel like I need very much of it before it feels like I'm forcing it in.
That is precisely it, and that's something that a lot of people sort of forget. Yeah, and that's exactly right. That is the biggest issue around the world, is a zinc deficiency, and it's another reason why a lot of populations are vulnerable to disease as well, because zinc is an important element in supporting your immune system. Zinc and vitamin D. So, it's one of the things. Now, let me go back to my spot. Can't find it. Damn. Let me get back here. Yeah, such as something about a shitty diet, Luke. Yeah, look, and that's the thing. A lot of people do strange things dietary wise, and then complain. and Frank was making all these, and then he went along, and then from there he started making these claims that it's all EMFs that is causing it. So then he jumped on that crazy bandwagon, even though I've shown good signs that you do not get oxidative stress from EMFs. You just don't. There is no signs from 5G that causes that. Now, it can affect your redox potential, but eat more bacon, get more niacin into your diet and correct that. So it's not a big issue at all. And it's very minor anyway, the effects on redox potential. It has to do with those blue the blue spectrum of that, electromagnetic fields. So blue light, as we call it, having a negative effect on your mitochondria. But that can be sort of mitigated with more niacin in your diet. So where's the issue? Unfortunately, there's a lot of sort of nonsense out there and whatever else. Thoughts on Cole Robinson's MetaFlex diet? Don't know about it.
Is that 2 meals a day?
I said, that's 2 meals a day.
Or 3 or 13?
It could be anything. That's true. I think it's only he only does 2 meals a day. I think that's what he does. High carb in the morning, carnivore midday for explosive energy. Gym. Look, there are plenty of populations that don't use any of these sort of approaches. I would say, why use a whole lot of plant source high carbs when you can just use whey protein? If you're pre-workout, whey protein has double the anabolic effect, and it will drive into muscle protein synthesis. It usually sort of works really well with the with a branched chain amino acids in the whey. That's what you want. You'll get a far better result. And if you take a look at the old bodybuilders, they did not use carbohydrates because they knew how it would wreck their stomach. And if you go back to look at some of my other previous live streams, I've actually shown the actual sort of meal preparation that primarily egg and egg cream and dairy products that the old bodybuilders used to use, a sort of their own formulation, a thick formulation which they used to bulk up. They didn't use carbohydrates. They used basically carbs from these and these growth factors in these animal foods. So that's how they did it, and that's how they remained. They built big muscle, but they retain much more leanness. Where most guys today, they eat too many carbs, and they get all these pop bellies with big muscles. They're just pushing. You want insulin to spike and come back down. You don't want it staying up too long, and that's what carbohydrates do. So that's why I don't agree with that. And that's why the bodybuilder look of today compared to the historical, completely different. Those guys really knew how to build really good-looking bodies. Even Arnie used this formulation, back then. And people have asked me for it. And if you go to my email me, and I will email you exactly what the composition of it is, because I haven't done the video yet. But I did show it once on one of my live streams, but I can't remember which one it is. You'd have to, you could actually watch them all. That would be good for me and like them, and get that information. But look, I don't know enough about what he's doing and how he's doing it and all that. And so for me to comment, all I can tell you is that's not the traditional technique. And I don't think you'll get the optimal results. So,
yeah, I certainly think that Cole's fasting approach will give you a better tolerance for the indiscretions of having high carbs in the morning, for example. But I like you say, I don't know that it's optimal, and I don't know that Cole speaks to a crowd that's trying to optimize things either. I think that he speaks to a crowd that are just coming from a standard diet as well.
Exactly.
What he's doing is certainly way better than a standard diet. But I'm not sure that if you're on a carnivore diet that you should start doing what he's doing and expect to feel better.
Precisely. I'd agree with that. That's pretty much it. You hit the nail on the head, as they would say. Yeah. Harry, question about the 1970s and how was margarine accepted? Well, margarine's been around for even longer than that. But you're probably talking about at the time in the 1970s when the USDA brought out the food guidelines and stuff like that at the time, because that was when they first basically tried to manipulate people's minds in believing that saturated fats were bad and they should be having all this trans fat in their diet.
Yep.
Yes.
So it ultimately comes down to the diet hard hypothesis, the Ansel Keys demonizing saturated fat, and then margarine being a very, very, very cheap waste product, basically, that didn't have any saturated fat in it, that could easily be marketed as a health food because of that. So,
yeah, and by that stage in the 70s, Ansel Keys had got on the American Heart Association, and what he had done is he had bullied out all his opponents by that stage and brought on what I call his nutritional mafia, and they literally rewrote the actual guidelines for the American Heart Association. So that's how, because remember, Ansel Keys worked with the military creating K rations back in the 40s, and he did a lot of the studies, and he had all the political connections. So he bullied his opponents. Even people within the US Academy of Science were bullied into submission or silence. Yeah. And it's only in recent years where the Academy of Science, the US Academy of Science, has come out criticizing the poor science and the poor literature. And there's been a couple of studies that have come out and that have the support of the US Academy of Science that point this quite out and say 95% of the science is you can't replicate it. It's poor. It's so one in 20 studies are basically clinical, and they actually show the complete opposite from what the majority of studies are showing out there. 19 of the studies are basically can't be replicated. They're all epidemiological, all observational in nature, and have really poor, science and sometimes people making pronouncements. Making pronouncements or opinions in science is not science.
Yeah.
What a scientist does is presents data and says, what my data does is infer this, or this. They don't say, that this is what the majority of scientists believe or that. Who gives a shit what the majority of scientists believe? The majority of scientists believe that Einstein was wrong back in the early days. 100 actually wrote letters of opposition to his theory and even tried to basically have it not even discussed or banned. This is a sort of, there are plenty of authority groups that will say, we're not going to have a bar of this. But that's not science. Science is something that is testable, and science is something that has to be replicatable. If you can't replicate something and you can't test it, then it's not science. It's opinion or a hypothesis at most. And that's what the majority of that sort of nonsense was out there. And that's what we based all the changes to the foods that we started feeding people. And, 4 decades later, we know the consequences of that sort of approach. It's disastrous. Has been disastrous. You just have to look at the amount of people on meds nowadays compared to the 1970s. An absolute disaster.
Yeah, health coach Kate put a really good post on Instagram that I saw a couple of days ago, where she just compared the ingredients lists on a hamburger from McDonald's and just put the beef on one side, the patty, where it was only beef, and then listed all of the ingredients for all of the sauces and the bun and the fries and everything on the other side. And just from a first principles approach, which one do you think is more likely to have the problem in it, right? And I was just thinking that, yeah, like the rhetoric they're using is, it's a good thing that we got lucky on all of these, 100 ingredients that are on this side of the post, that these aren't the problem. It's actually this side. It's the one ingredient here. Like it's just from a rhetorical standpoint, it's absurd to try to say that the meat is the issue there. And Ansel Keys was able to basically make his reputation on making those sorts of claims. And I don't want to imply malice of intent, but yeah, I don't think that he was pushing that based on this being the expected outcome, but I do think he was pushing that with a certain malice of forethought, in the sense that he knew that he stood to gain from it.
Precisely. And he stood to gain a lot. Reputation, awards, money, and all that. Because pretty much he had 22 countries. He ignored the majority and only showed 7 countries. Initially 6 and then 7. Why? For the simple fact that basically it didn't fit his ideology. That's not science. His own belief, or what he was pushing, peddling at the time. And so, it was just basically, there was an opportunity there for him to jump on the bandwagon because nobody had a solution. The Academy of Sciences looked into it. The president had a heart attack. Eisenhower at the time, nobody had any response. The media were basically clamoring for a response. And here comes, Ansel Keys and goes, puts up his hand and goes, look, I've got an idea of what's causing it. Mm-hmm. And then basically, launched this madness on the world population.
Here's my idea. It's not vegetable oils. It's all of the foods that we've been eating since forever.
Exactly. And what does he do to get away from this poor food environment? He goes and moves over to Italy and lives in Italy,
where the saturated fat is more
very high.
And, yeah,
exactly. Yeah, and he was even caught in restaurants actually eating this way. So
I didn't know that.
And he was basically, and he said, it doesn't affect me. This is the sort of bullshit. But he stayed out of the food environment of the US, which was just toxic in that regard. So now, what is Christina asking? I grew up in a small neighborhood. Forced fed geese. Okay, yeah, for French exports. Yeah, that's pretty much. Yeah, they what are they? There's there's lactose which they give them. They shove actually lactose down their throats to fatten them up. There's there's a cornstarch as well, and there's some other thing I just cannot remember, which they shove down their throat and actually fatten them up. So it's all with putting carbs down there. But one of the favorites in the past used to be basically milk sugar, because it was because basically it was the quickest way to fatten up, and the quickest way, because remember what I've said in one of my videos that I've made about the importance of choline as an exporter, which you get in animal foods and only in animal foods, as an exporter of fat out of the liver. So if you're denying animal products to that animal and you're feeding it force feeding it a choline deficient diet and putting in a whole lot of sugar that it can't export triglycerides, what is it going to do? It's going to store all that fat in its liver and build it up, and that's how they get that fatty liver for the geese. So it's well known. Look, you ask any farmer, how do I fatten up a hog or whatever? Feed it carbs, feed it sugar. It's not as if they don't know it. Farmers have been doing it for donkey's years. They know you feed it basically just fat and protein. It'll end up lean. It won't fatten up. So they may occasionally use. Nowadays, some farmers actually go as far as using seed oils, and yes, it is a fat, but it also compromises the the mitochondria, and from that pathway, it sort of seems to fatten them up as well. So yeah, not a good thing. Okay, Harut. Speaking of organ meats, I have some lamb lungs yesterday as part of a mixed pack. Yeah, that sounds good. Anybody knows a good way to prepare them? I will go Google the grill philosophy. It's these are two Greek guys that actually some of their stuff is English subtitled, but not all of it, unfortunately. So see whether they have anything, because they may have something on there. If look, I may even check later to see if I get a chance. Okay, thank you, StreamYard, for losing my spot.
Yeah, I would like to try lung, but it's very difficult to get. It's actually, I think you have to butcher the animal yourself in order to get it in Canada. The butchers are not legally allowed to even ask for it from the abattoir when the animal's killed. So because it spoils so fast, because the whole thing is just surface area, right?
I couldn't actually tell you on their own what they taste because I've had lung, but it's in a mixed, like it was mixed with other things and some herbs and, so something my I can't remember whether it was mum or dad that cooked it, but it was, yeah. So I can't say, what it really tastes like on its own, because it was mixed with other things and the flavors sort of mix and yeah. So hard to say. But please let us know once you've tried it. Is there a mechanism in which homozygous in 6 mutation could cause elevated liver enzymes? You're probably talking about the MTHFR, and you're talking about issues with methylation, and in particular, there's an easy way of resolving it. Just increase your riboflavin. Simple as that. I did a video on it, so go and check it. It's on my site. It's the, can't remember the first one or the second one on methylation. Anyway, so if you check that, I explain exactly and show the science of how to fix that specific SNPs. But elevated sort of enzymes and all that can be from all sorts of different dysfunctions, maybe other deficiencies like MK4, which is really important. It could be from basically other types of foods that you've consumed. I'd have to have more details before I could give you a quite clear opinion. Obviously, if you've got this mutation, you're going to have methylation issues, and that can actually also be a factor, but not the only factor. But I would say that if you want to fix this, get your riboflavin status up, eat a more carnivorous diet, which usually tends to have higher riboflavin and usually sorts that out.
So what would be the specific symptom that he's experiencing with elevated liver enzymes?
It could be related. Remember I've spoken about the FXR enzyme, which also has an effect on the bile synthesis. And it could be that, because a lot of people tend to get gut issues or malabsorption issues or diarrhea. And sometimes it's usually related to that. And when you fix that with more MK4 in the diet, and also sorting out any gut issues that may be like DAO, sort of like gut permeability or whatever else, usually things correct themselves in that regard. But I've not look, a lot of people that get these sort of malabsorption issues, it is related to sort of gut issues. I think Elliot's spoken a bit about them, but he hasn't really. He's sort of focused on the thiamine side and a few other things, but he hasn't sort of focused on the MK4, which is what I've focused on, and I've spoken about it because it's a key fat-soluble vitamin regulator of bile synthesis and also the FXR. Also, the other thing that he has mentioned, and I've mentioned in the past many times, is in regards to liver enzyme issues with milk thistle. That also has a positive effect. But if you've got really severe issues with your liver, the best thing to supplement is R-alpha lipoic acid, hands down. It's the most important one. It's the one that I recommended to Frankie and a whole lot of other people. It's the one that people that actually had eaten inappropriate mushrooms and damaged their liver and basically, some of their organs. This was basically back, I can't remember what year. It was quite a few decades back, and this researcher was basically working as a medical doctor out of one of the university's hospitals down in Texas. I think it was in Austin, but I can't remember. And they still use this technique. They basically put people on very high doses of R-lipoic acid and basically fix their liver. So if they get poisoned from mushrooms, or other things like that. So if because you're asking the question, but I would say, you from this mutation, you're not going to necessarily get there are other factors that are at play. It's not going to be just a homocysteine issue, because a homocysteine issue affects all organs throughout the whole body. High homocysteine levels affect the entire body, but specific to the liver, there's a number of other things that affect it directly, which is a bit different in that regard. But if you're basically first find out where you are, if you've got any really severe problems, then get on to R-alpha lipoic acid. If you've got gut permeability issues, then get on a liposomal form, because you want to bypass the gut issue completely, and you want it to get into your bloodstream much easier in a liposomal form. And you can find on iHerb, there is a liposomal. It's called, I've shown it on here before. Let me just find it. NutraScience or something like that it's called. I sort of always bloody don't remember their name. Oh, freaking hell. That dropped out. It's fine. Give me a sec. Aurora NutraScience. And here it is. And I will share, and hopefully we won't lose the damn screen. Please don't be nice to me, StreamYard. I love you. Be nice. The key. It's pricey, but this is basically the liposomal form, and it's sub 50 nanometers. So it's basically about 20 odd around there, because I did contact the company and they told me it's about 20 odd. It can be a bit higher than just 20, and that has to do with issues basically that manufacturing. You're never going to get every single liposome down to 20 uniformly. It's just, but it's still below 50, which is good. 50 and below is good. 80 is not too bad as well. They tend to be cheaper, the 80 and below. Anything over 100, I wouldn't waste my time. 150, you won't even absorb it. It's crap. So that's in nanometers. So this one is probably one of the better ones if you've got gut issues. If you don't, go for something different.
And if that's prohibitively expensive for you as well, then the regular one may still help with gut issues. You just get less of it at a time.
Yeah, exactly. There are other brands of alpha lipoic acid that basically other brands that I'm not going to point to them that provide products that can basically help you in that regard. But you need to first, find out whether you do have any issues of that sort before you waste your money. You can get lipoic acid does exist in organ meats, but in much smaller amounts. These are in much higher concentrations. So, but as I said, if you're eating a healthy diet for many years, you're going to be much better off in that regard. Yes, exactly. Eating nose to tail is really healthy, and it basically eliminates a lot of those issues that people have in the long run. But supplements, as I say, supplements should only be used short term, within a year or less, and they should be basically to mitigate or fix or correct a deficiency or a problem from people coming from a standard diet, vegan diet, or some other diet that was deficient in some regard. So that's where the focus should be. Yes. Sometimes it is hard to find certain things.
Yeah, I've been tempted to try the Ancestral supplements or other types of equivalent supplement brands of just desiccated long in capsules because I can't get it fresh. I'm interested to try it.
Yeah, well, pork is one of the foods that are much higher in niacin. So compared to beef, pork has more niacin in that regard. So yep, so it's much better. But try and get good quality, not really poor quality pork if you're going to have pork. But even with poor quality, I've sort of got question marks on it, so. Oh, look, I don't really know what he does. If you're eating high calories and you're doing a lot of, you're trying to bulk up or build up or stuff like that, yeah, it can be appropriate for certain people, but it's definitely not for the average person. So we've got to be very careful. And I don't know what he's recommending. If he's recommending that sort of stuff to average people, that's probably wrong, because if you're basically sedentary or sitting around or not doing enough. But I don't know because I haven't seen many of his videos recently. Primarily the stuff that I looked at in the past were related to other issues. But yes. Yeah, exactly, Luke. People have changed. In the past, people consume far more organ meats than what they do today. And then I hear people say, "Oh, don't eat too many organ meats. You're going to get all sorts of issues." And I'm going, I mean, I lived in Greece in the 70s. I mean, I was born in Australia, but we went back to Greece. Dad dragged us back. And on the west coast of Greece, I can tell you, people ate a lot of organ meats. They got up in the morning and ate tripe for breakfast. It wasn't cereal, it was tripe. So I saw people consuming a lot. And, when it comes to diseases like heart disease, strokes, cancer and all that, unknown on the west coast. It was an extreme rare case. The only person that I actually knew that actually did get some sort of health issue, was a doctor, and he loved eating certain sweets because he was a family friend, and he basically ate sweets every day. So, well, that's just an anecdote, obviously, but there was no other people that really most people, the majority of cases, you turn up at the hospital. Majority of cases were things like you need a tetanus shot or you had an injury or something like that, and I, probably twice in my life went to a hospital there, and it was primarily related to an injury that I'd caused myself on my bicycle coming off it. So I've still got a bit of a gash up here that goes right through there, and that's basically in an indentation from me flying off and literally hitting my head on a whole lot of the turf and sort of all the not like to rip you, or the little thing that I've got right here in my nose down here, which is basically when I fell on a tin can. I did a lot of crazy things when I was a young kid. I was out of control, very energetic, let's put it that way. I caused my mother a lot of, I increased her, let's say, her blood pressure quite a bit as I was growing up. So, yes, I've still got all those indentations that I haven't, fucking hell. Or, I've got these sort of things have receded from my 40s. My sort of my skin's actually done better, but the damn indentations, because the problem is it's like, when you get burnt, a burns victim, even though, it heals, but it heals in a very distorted way, not in the natural way that the tissue's supposed to be. And the scarring never really goes away 100%. And it's the same thing when you get cut and you get all these little scars, even though the other parts of your skin sort of clear up. Those sort of things, because they've just been stitched in such an unusual way that just basically the tissue just tends to keep that, which is annoying. But yeah, anyway, that's my vanity side.
Sorry, I'm distracted answering questions in the chat a little bit. Ooh, Scotch fillet.
Yes, even Shell likes that. She likes a bit of filet. Spent the school break on a homestead with my grandparents. Yeah, you would have had, was eating what they grew up in the gardens and animal foods, eggs and raw milk. Yep, exactly. I sort of was in the mountains sort of on the west coast of Greece. My auntie, dad's sister, she had goats. And so in the summer times, we sometimes went up to the village, and I even herded goats. Not for a long period of time. I actually dumped my sister there and actually took off, went to the other village, which was a couple of Ks in the other direction. She still bitches about it. So, yeah, anyway. It's my younger sister. The one that was a lot, what I call a light vegetard. She was a vegetarian. And she saw the light when she moved over, because basically I started slabbing meats in front of her, and she goes, "What's this? I don't eat this." I said, "Well, that's the only stuff I eat in this house." She was staying with me when she came back from Greece. She had to stay with me and endure my cooking and my foods for the next 10 months. But it reversed her asthma, and basically, got rid of her anemia as well. It was a light level, but still, she used to pass out. She literally used to pass out. My brother-in-law had taken a number of times up to the hospital. She'd pass out because she was a supermarket manager in Greece, and she would pass out, and he'd get a call, and he'd have to go and pick her up. Eating an especially inappropriate diet. That's what it does to you.
And anemia seems to be a more common symptom for women too from doing that.
Yeah, exactly. It's just crazy stuff. But when you've been brainwashed, like we all were back then, thinking that this is a better way. Yes, I can hear. I know. Butter. Yes, you're right. Yeah, brainwashed.
I haven't heard the worst of it. I've had my microphone muted. She sounds like she's in pain sometimes. It's ridiculous.
I want a boy.
Yeah, yeah.
is what she's saying.
And some heats are more intense than others for her too, and the summer ones seem to be bigger. How long have you been eating a hairy diet? How long have you been eating a carnivore diet, as we would call it, that, Harry?
Me, probably
Yeah.
for about it's probably about a year now.
Yeah.
So I haven't been long doing it. So it was basically I sort of last year I sort of came across. I'd already started, because I was doing low carb, and I actually started reducing, taking more and more vegetables out and all this sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to the stage I was going, I feel better. Fuck this. Why am I eating this crap?
And you were already doing like a Mediterranean keto diet, right?
Yep. Yeah,
So
that's what I was doing.
a lot
And
closer to
exactly. And I was getting rid of more and more plants because I just couldn't see the benefit, and I was enjoying, all these rich dairy products and seafood and all that sort of stuff. So why go back to that crap? So I wasn't thinking, I wasn't doing it like intentionally. It was just basically I couldn't see the value of basically cooking a whole lot of vegetables. It was just easy just to cook a steak or cook, and sort of I drifted into carnivory to more carnivorous style rather than actually, and then I came across Sean Baker and Frank Tofano and stuff like that. And when I came across them, I sort of go, these guys are, and they were sort of next level, carnivory sort of thing, like Sean was eating shitloads of steaks, and then Frank was basically, having raw, and with Frank, I could actually relate a bit more because I did like a bit of rare, like meat and and some raw stuff, animal products. So
yeah.
I could relate with that, and sort of it's probably the reason why I gravitated closer to Frank for a long period of time, and I sort of was supportive and sent him information and stuff like that constantly. Sort of was supportive of his channel quite a bit. Until he went off the reservation in recent times, but that's a different thing altogether. But
yeah, no, there are
a bit
plenty
of
recovering Frank viewers in this community.
Now I have to thank Frank in a sense because he introduced me to Bart.
Yeah.
So that's how I found out about Bart.
I'm not sure how I found Bart. I'm so bad for I don't remember how I found people or when the first video of them that I watched was. I just start diving in when I find it,
Yeah.
But I think I probably did find Bart from Frank as well. It would have been either from Frank or Tristan, and I think I was watching Frank more at the time, so I think it was Frank.
Yeah, I at the same time before I became aware of Bart, I did become aware of Tristan a bit after, but I'd never. It was Frank that basically introduced me to Bart, not from one of his videos. I go, this guy seems interesting. He's a scientist, and he's got. Let me just check this guy. And when I checked out, I said, I really like this because it was basically more in tune with my own thinking. I sort of sometimes would basically post things or email Frank or put posts and sort of, because sometimes he let's say, not that he stretched the truth, but he sort of exaggerated a few points and he missed out at some other stuff. So I would post stuff like that. And when I came across Bart, I realized a person after my own heart, somebody that basically believes in the science, just doesn't grab the first study and wave it around and say, oh, I've got the evidence here, or it's a rat study and I go, oh, I've got the evidence here. And I'm going, well, you've got nothing. You've just got an opinion.
He points to the occasional mouse study, but he qualifies why it's relevant in this context when he does it.
Precisely, So, because like I've done that as well, when it comes to basically mammalian physiology on at certain levels, there are certain genes that go way back, multiple millions of years that are still there. And in that regard, yes, you can actually subscribe and point and say, within all the mammals, this is something which is quite clear still there.
Yeah.
But in some of the other areas, no, it's not. There's a different conversion rate of La to arachidonic acid, the omega-6s, between humans and rats. You to get a rat into ketosis, you need to push them up to close to 90% fat, or even slightly above fat at 90%, and it's very hard to get them into that state, which shows quite clearly that they're sort of the way they metabolize macros is very different to us, and you can't basically subscribe the way their bodies respond to certain macros in the same way you can subscribe to us. And that's where the risk is. Rats are really good for those general physiological things, for toxicity, where they can point out toxicity because they're a mammal, and all mammals will basically feel a certain level of toxicity in the same way, So those are the things where they're useful. That's why they use them for drug therapies, And in some cases, the drugs actually work better on the rat than the human, and they have to withdraw them because they create too many side effects in humans, but they don't in rats.
Yeah.
So it's really important. I remind people that rats are not the best source of either drug knowledge or diet knowledge. What they are good at is providing us with information that whether something is toxic or not going to be toxic. Things like that, they're very good because they're a mammalian model that can actually tell you that. But the downside is a lot of these mice are actually bred with specific predispositions, with knockout genes and whatever else, things that are not normal in the general population. And then to extrapolate from that to humans is a long bow to draw. And I've seen plenty of people using those sort of studies to make sort of claims which are, next to, they're wrong. They're basically just, they're really, trying to stretch the truth in that way. Have you heard that people are afraid of giving up carbs because it's bad for the thought? Yeah, look, that's just an old thing. That's just crap on crap. At the end of the day, your thyroid. Let me put it this way: if you're fasted, we won't even talk about keto, won't even talk about low carb or whatever. Let's say you're fasted. What does your body naturally do without any nutrition, any foods? What does it naturally do? Thyroid comes down. Why? Because it's protective. If you're thermogenic, or your rate of your thyroid is too high, what is it going to do? It's going to waste away muscle tissue. You've got to bring your thyroid down. In a sense, it's only when you basically, if your TSH doesn't come down, then you've got a thyroid issue. But when you're on these low carb, all these markers come down. They naturally come down. They respond to the requirement to basically preserve muscle, so you don't lose muscle mass. It is an ingenious method, because if you're a tribal person and didn't have access to a lot of food for a period of time, you want the ketones or the free fatty acids, the ketones and the free fatty acids out there energizing and providing the energy for your body so you can go out there and hunt an animal. But you don't want to be you want to be protecting your muscle mass. So you want to be using fat for glucose, the glycerol part, and you want to be basically using fat for energy. You do not want to be using muscle. That is why insulin goes very low. That is why basically, the certain level of demand-driven glucose is controlled to prevent you being pushed out of ketosis, and then basically your body attacking your muscle. It's not stupid. And that's why it has to come down. It's a normal sort of thing. When your thyroid is dysregulated, it's because of lack of nutrients. Look at my fucking hair, how thick it is and how big it is and all that. You've seen, how it's grown like mad. Because basically when you give it the hair biotin, zinc, selenium, or iodine, all these good nutrients that basically support the thyroid as well, you don't get. The only time my hair thinned out, I remember when I did really, that stupid therapeutic level of ketosis, like, getting to 90% of, fat and, and cutting back protein to next to nothing and stuff like that. that is when I started really feeling the cold and things like that. That's when I really put my thyroid into the toilet. And that's not good to do that for a long period of time. But when you're basically, eating in a sensible way, it's not going to be an issue. The other thing is your thyroid needs nutrients. It needs zinc. It needs selenium. These things are very high in animal foods. They're not in plant foods. So what glucose does is actually just pushes it. And they go, oh, your thyroid's up. But really what it's doing is it's actually tearing away your muscle. And this is what happens to vegans and vegetarians. What happens is they start if they don't get enough calories in terms of sugar, they start eating away their muscle mass because of the high thyroid. And that's the problem with vegan diets and all that. That's why they waste away, and that is why, Bart calls anorexia vegana. He doesn't call it accidentally. He knows why he's calling it. Is because these fucktards are pushing up their thyroid too high and wasting away all their muscle. What a bunch of wankers, idiots. They don't understand human physiology, how it's supposed to work. So you can't, and the only way to preserve under those conditions muscle is to basically give the body shitloads of sugar. That's why you've got people like, Harley, and, Durian Rider sitting there eating continuously sugar to basically protect so he doesn't lose muscle mass. And sometimes even that doesn't help, and he has to take steroids, which is admitted anyway. To Bart when he was, debating Bart on Drew Moore's site, he admitted to it. It's there for everybody to see, So they got no argument whatsoever. It's just a ridiculous sort of assertions that they make, because they know their diet is shit and deficient, but they don't give a shit about human health. It's all about the animals. Remember that other misanthropist, hater of humans, of all humans. At least he's basically doesn't discriminate against particular humans. He hates everyone. That's Richard Burgess, our dear friend VG.
Advocates for being an asshole. He literally thinks that it's good to be a complete dick. I mean, at least he practices what he preaches, yeah.
Exactly. He does. Actually, he's basically the biggest fucktard out there. And he hates everyone, So, at least he's honest about hating everyone.
Yeah, it's not him that discourages me. It's the size of his audience. It's the fact that so many
people I know. Yeah.
I have to maintain a little bit of faith in humanity. I have to assume that a lot of people watch him ironically, that a lot of people watch him because they're entertained by just, I don't know, by the stupidity of it. But the fact that anybody could watch the way that guy argues and think that he's the correct one is just, it's discouraging.
Being a shallow person, has anyone seen changes in facial bone structure, like zygomatic bones towards forward face? Look, some people, some people do actually see, when they go from a vegan diet to a carnivore diet, they see major facial changes and all that. And their bones become stronger, their teeth become stronger, the mineral density increases and all that. They do see that. These are anecdotes because we've got no science, because nobody's done any research what happens to a person transitioning from this diet to that diet. We haven't seen that because there's no research out there. All we can do is point to anecdotes of all these people that have actually done it and have seen different results. That's all we can say. We need to be very careful. If we've got science, we've got science. If we don't have science, we've only got anecdotes. That's all we've got, and that's all we can go. But there are a shitload of anecdotes. So I think the observational, the strength, the sheer strength in observational statistical strength is there to basically say, yeah, it's more than likely that when you go on a diet that basically provides you with the micro and macronutrients that your body requires, because remember, most of your tissue is made up of, forget about if we exclude the water, most of your tissue is made up of fats and proteins. what are animal products have primarily fats and proteins. And at the same time, they can be incorporated much easier. So they don't need as many also micronutrients. But then again, animal foods are also very high in micronutrients. So, you can't go wrong in a sense. Yeah, that's it. Yep. Yeah. Corn and skim milk. Yep. Yeah. I knew the skim milk, but I wasn't sure about the corn, whether it's, they say they make some sort of bloody thing with the corn. Yeah, they combine it together. So, yeah, thymus is good to try it. I usually say to people also, consider if you can get giblets, which is basically all the different organs from a chicken, and it's pastured, free range type chicken. That's a good also mix, which is easy, where you can make like a stir, with a bit of butter or ghee or whatever, or lard. You can make a bit of a stir fry of organ meats. And then put a bit of butter on top or a bit of cream. Really nice. So that's another option you can try. Get a more mixed sort of profile in that regard. And the sort of mewing seems to help people as well, So yeah, but I don't know enough about it. There are other people that do a lot of stuff on that on the web. There's another guy that actually sells some product where you basically, it's probably good for some veg tarts, but anyway, where you put a device in your mouth and you actually like chew it, and it actually strengthens your bones and muscles and all that. I've heard somebody mention it to me anyway, but at the end of the day, so does my sort of behavior of eating, soft bones, like I do the chicken bones and all that. I've told you, for the hyaluronic acid and all that, and chewing through them and all that. That also strengthens the jaw, strengthens the teeth and all that, because you're actually applying force and all that. Now, if you're transitioning from a vegan or vegetarian diet, please do not do that. You'll crack your teeth. Okay, do that at a later stage. First, get yourself on the diet for a period of time, and then consider something like that. Yeah, Kate's great value. Yeah, she basically also made me aware of Gerhard Stippler, who's a researcher out of Austria, who's done well over 50 studies on seed oils. And pretty much as a biochemist, most people have ignored him. Voila, in the nutritional world. But he's done shitloads of research showing mechanism, what seed oils do and all that, and all the nice and destructive things that they do to a human body. He did basically consume shitloads, or he smoked shitloads of cigarettes as well. Back then, look, everybody, when at the time, First World War and Second World War, the big thing was to basically hand troops cigarettes. That was part of their, and so they basically just made 3 generations addicted to tobacco, pretty much. So
4 packs a day. That's he's smoking it like it's his job, as if he doesn't have a country to run.
Yeah, I mean, even in my heydays, I did a pack a day, but never 4. That's next level smoking, So, and I did 2 decades of smoking, which wasn't good, but yeah. So, you definitely do not want to get the MK7, because you may be a poor converter. A third of the population cannot convert MK7 at all to the active animal form of MK4, and the other 2/3 have varying degrees of actually the populations that actually, it's only the Japanese that consume natto and all that tend to have some of the better conversion rates of MK7 to MK4. So that's a genetic thing that's actually happened over a number of generations, consuming a lot of that food. Most Europeans are poor converters, so you really need to get the MK4. And I think Jared actually put, where was it?
Yeah, I answered his question a little bit. I posted the link to the Carlson Labs.
Yeah, exactly. So
One that you recommend.
Yeah, that's the one that I've used as well. So yeah, so just go for that one. That's on the iHerb. So yeah.
I just paid the duty on my order of that to try it, so hopefully it'll be here in a few days.
I need to put a space there. Damn. Sorry, just to the website, you know me. When it's annoying, there it is. So that's the Carlson one. So these things need to be done as a protocol or as a short-term solution. You should be getting it from your diet. So that's 180 capsules. They're quite pricey, and that is that sort of dose. There's another one which has got 90. This tends to, for the 180, it'll be 100. It'll be much more, even higher, but this has got a higher dose. As you can see, okay, 15 against 5. So that's the difference between the two brands in that regard. Now, it's good for decalcifying yourself. So if you want to decalcify your kidneys, your different organs, your soft tissue around the place of too much calcium that's been deposited over years because of consuming too many inappropriate foods, and yeah, so it's a really good supplement in that regard. But if you don't really have any underlying cardiovascular issues or whatever, and you just want to basically saturate your tissue, just go for this one. If you've got, I would still initially start with this one, because I don't want you to rapidly take out calcium, because it's a stabilizing force to those plaques. So you want to first use this, take it out. And as you heal well over a year on that, then you can shift to this one, to this brand, and pretty much do 3 months on, 3 months off, 3 months on, 3 months off, 3 months on, 3 months off. So you've got this, you're taking out rapidly, and then you're giving the body some time to heal. Then you're taking out again, some heal. I prefer that. It's safer doing it that way. It takes longer, yes, but it's safer. We don't want any internal ruptures, so to speak, of soft tissue. So, yeah, because sometimes people have got other potential dysregulations, which I may not know about, and I'm not prepared to put you in harm's way. Sort of. So don't listen to the people out there that go crazy. No. Go slow, much safer. It may take a bit longer, but you'll thank me for it. You're less likely to end up in an emergency ward. So, just best facial growth. Okay, so an opinion. Yeah, look, when it comes to mewing, I don't know enough to comment. People seem to be getting good results. Some people better than others. But I'm not going to specifically comment because I haven't looked at the research. So And I haven't used that one, so I don't know enough about it. The reason, look, I don't know enough about it. And what sort of oil is it, which is the other thing. So if it's in a liquid, is it in a seed oil, or is it basically in extra virgin olive oil, or is it in palm oil? Is it in a more stable oil in that liquid form? So where these ones sort of here, they're basically in hypermellose and purified water. So they're in a capsule. So you don't have any, there's no basically, and this other one is in a beef gelatin capsule. The Carlson one. It's probably
Fapnato says that the Thorn MK4 is in MCT oil.
Okay, it's in MCT oil. Okay, that's probably safer. Yep, yeah. But as I said, if I don't know about something, I don't like to basically, unless I know exactly what it is. But if it's in MCT oil, it's probably okay. And such a low quantity, it's not going to cause any issues anyway. But but still, we don't want to be putting that sort of stuff, that nasty stuff, into our bodies. So something about futuristic communities, we'll leave that alone. Why do I think Frank was having constant while running? Don't know, mate. Don't know. Maybe he's a hypochondriac. That could be a reason.
I mean,
and the other thing is, have you looked at his cabinet when he's opened it up and he's got all these supplements?
I'm not sure if they're all his, because he lives in his parents' house, right?
Okay.
But I think he's probably got some level of anxiety going on where he's sort of fixated on how he feels. I can certainly relate to that, but I don't want to rock the boat too much in my case with trying to solve problems too quickly.
Yeah, look, none of us really know. I'm not his doctor. I've never tested him for anything. I've never examined him. And I don't really know everything, what he eats, what he does, and all that precisely. I mean, just because somebody says, this is what I eat in a day, and they show something on a video or whatever, it doesn't mean that this is what they're eating continuously throughout the week, day in, day out, for weeks on end. So I don't know. So all I can say is that some of the claims are not being made by other carnivores out there. So, and I say, well, if you don't have enough copper, eat more liver. But then he's hostile towards liver. It's like, it could be this other problem. I'm going, oh, well, don't know. Pass.
Yeah. I mean, again, he was eating like pounds of foie gras, wasn't he? Giant amounts of goose liver.
Yeah, which isn't really a normal thing that even the French do.
Yeah.
So it's like I will supplement a bit. If a bit is okay, maybe a lot is even better. Sort of approach, which just seems bizarre to me in that regard. No idea, mate. What trans MK7 does? Why bother? Because basically, in Europe, you can actually get MK. You can get in the UK on the iHerb site, and in different parts of Europe, they sell the same Carlson's MK4, and the other one, which is the Advanced Orthomolecular Research. It was there, so I could read it because I couldn't remember it off my
AOR.
That's it. Yeah, I know what it is that, but I wonder. Yes, I want to use it for.
That was the one that I tried their B supplement, the B complex today, and felt really good and clear for about an hour, and then immediately had to run for the toilet. And I think it was the chlorophyll in the capsule itself.
Yeah, probably.
So I'm going to try just emptying the capsule next time into a glass of water or something.
And just having it like that. Yep, exactly. That's the problem with a lot of supplements. Sometimes people react in a certain way, and sometimes there are fillers that are in there that are not even written down, and that's the other thing. So, I've had cases where other people have sort of gone, and as I said, because I didn't know enough about it, when you asked me, I said it looks good in the general look, but as I said, in terms of the different, it didn't have sonocobalamin or anything like that. It seemed to have, had methylfolate. It didn't have folic acid like a lot of them had. Didn't have any of the sort of nasty, obvious stuff. But, when it comes to these other little fillers and things like that, people react differently. So, yes, unfortunately, you had to pay to learn.
I'll probably try it again tomorrow or in the next day or two without the capsule. And if the same thing happens, I won't continue to take it.
No, because then it basically is probably some other filler that's not on the label.
Yeah.
So you're reacting to something else, because you shouldn't be reacting to normal B vitamins.
Right.
None of us should, in that way. It's just, and as we said, short term, just to basically fix up those sort of deficiencies. I usually keep B vitamins, and the only reason I keep them is I need to throw them out because I've had them for too long now. When I used to have my Fridays, because now I'm working from home, when I used to go to the pub, have a few drinks with the guys.
Hangover cure.
It was basically, yes. Yeah. So B vitamins, 2 before and 2 after, and I would have no hangover, let alone it would allow me to drink more, which isn't, don't take that advice, So
just a second, I'm going to go grab a couple of B vitamins and a drink.
And then I'll go spastic on the alcohol. Yes, It may not make you as drunk, but the problem is it's still going to damage your brain. It's still going to damage organs and all that from the excess alcohol. Your body still needs to detox it. You may not get the sort of those other effects. So yes, sometimes too much knowledge to this crowd can be a bad thing. Okay, Christina's asking B1 benefits. Look, it's far more bioavailable. But some of the other better quality ones as well, the benfotiamine or whatever it's called is also quite good. And that's what I've steered people to because it's more affordable. Where the TTFD is quite expensive in comparison. But if you need to take something which that is recommended to you for a certain period of time, fine. But I agree that it's more bioavailable. I won't disagree with that, but I don't think that it's necessary to go to the extra expense, in a sense. But that's for people to make their own choice on that. Not for me to tell them. It's your own money, not mine. Also, the form, that's no longer on them. Okay. Yeah, that's a bit unfortunate. Yeah, you sort of have to... I know that some people... Yeah, you may have to look at the Amazon site to see whether they actually will send to Germany or not. So that's your other option, Sam. So I think these products, the calcium one and the advanced one that I just said before, the AOR, also is on the Amazon site. But whether they actually will ship to Germany, no idea.
So I think the B1 form in the AOR that I'm taking is Christina Schneider just had it in the chat. Yeah, benfotiamine.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Which is also quite good as bioavailable. It's a second best after the one that Elliot actually recommends.
The
But it's the
TTFD.
same. Yeah. But at the same time, as I say, it's pricier. And, is it that substantially more? Well, let's say you've got a severe deficiency. It may be a good idea to take it for a short period of time. But, it's not something that...
I am popular, Luke. Thank you. I hold these truths as self-evident, so I don't draw attention to them myself.
As if we had to guess. T1, as if I had to guess. That doesn't surprise me, because you would have probably heard it from the second time and you're going, a license to drink myself under the table without getting a hangover the next day. Yeah, doesn't surprise me one iota.
Yeah, it's Saturday night. He's pouring himself a drink right now. For me, anyway. Sunday morning, less optimal time to pour yourself a drink.
Exactly. Oops, let me find my place. Okay, my husband was a burn victim, 30%. The skin on the arm looks like alligator skin, but it tans and grows hair. They did a good job with skin grafts. Yeah, look, yeah, exactly. It's never, I know from my sort of injuries and stuff like that, it's, you never can really get 100%, or, diet's not going to do it. Anybody tells you. The only thing that will probably do it is a good Californian facial reconstruction surgeon that does things for
plastic surgeon.
Yeah, a skilled plastic surgeon, exactly.
So you're not gonna try to get people onto the proteolytic enzymes and MK4 regimen for burn victims, for burn scarring.
Look, if you take a look at what they do for people like that, they actually increase their fat soluble vitamins. They increase, collagen type foods and stuff like that. If you're eating, and fat in particular, you get the best results if you basically give the person a lot of, gelatinous type material. Because they don't want to feed people animal foods, what do? They feed them shitloads of jelly. What's jelly got? Bovine gelatin, or this is the madness. They know that this stuff helps burn victims, but they won't give you a steak or a fatty steak like a pork with, all that additional material. No, they'll just give you gelatin day in, day out. Why? And a lot of it, shitloads. They make it actually thicker, and they provide you. Why? Because they know it helps with the actual healing. But they won't basically. Now some medicos even go as far as buying actual gelatin supplements. They have I can't remember the brand, and they actually use it for burns victims. But they won't recommend animal foods. Yeah, exactly. Crazy stuff.
We're not so far away from the Ansel Keys diet hypothesis making margarine prevalent, at least that line of thinking.
Look, it's still very entrenched, unfortunately.
Yes, lots of money and lots of useful idiots for the money.
So you're having an interesting conversation with a crackpot. I'll trap his ass. Good for you. Good for you.
What are you going to do with his ass after you trap it?
Yes. Tell us more. Look, these scoundrels and crackpots, what they do is their whole life, they basically do one thing. They go towards epidemiology, because that is the what I call the crackpot's domain, is nutritional epidemiology. Those 95% of studies that basically one day they say apples are good, the next day they're bad, eggs are good, the next day they're bad, and it goes on depending on who does the study and what statistical crap they come up with. It's nonsense. There is no control. There is no way of inferring causation with these studies. And so you're probably wasting your time and energy. Could be used elsewhere to promote good ideas. Or, you could take all my points, my comments on that I've got on my discuss area, which talks about the myths and falsehoods of veganism, and you could be plastering that all over the place under your name. I don't mind if you plagiarize those notes. Just plaster it all over the place. And that would actually be of a greater benefit to our community and also to many of the misguided, brainwashed vegtards on their community pages that could learn that they've been had by their gurus, because their gurus say monkeys don't eat meat. And I think that's the first one that I actually show, where they're eating a ton of meat. And I don't even use my videos where I go through the research and all that. I just use basically the one which is the National Geographic. And the reason why I don't use mine is because I pretty much want to basically say, here's independent sources that are not carnivore sites or whatever that are saying this. Or here's science that shows that Prevotella, high levels of Prevotella, causes high interleukin and C-reactive protein elevations. And when you bifidobacteria, when you're basically eating animal foods, they go down. These interleukins go down. The inflammation goes down. So what sort of foods should you be eating? Foods high in the things, the fibers that people recommend that cause the elevation of the inflammation, or the meats that actually support the sort of bacteria that grow that basically lower inflammation, as an example, because they love the gut microbiome. But what do they tell? They never tell you about the gut microbiome. What they do is they go, you need fiber for the gut microbiome, but they don't tell you what the bacteria are doing with that fiber. What is the population, the morphology of that population? They avoid that question, because when you go into the weeds, into the grass weeds, fiber, the weeds. Hope you're laughing. And when you go into the weeds, because they're on weed, most of them, you think that with their thinking, they're fucking high as kites. And you basically realize that not doing you very much good, is it? Just look at Stench. He's a decade younger than me. He's in his 40s. He's a decade younger than me, and basically looks older than me. That should tell you everything. And I haven't even been doing this diet for a very long time, and still look better than him.
Mm. Yeah, he's Bart and I talked about this just a little bit earlier, and Bart talked about it at length before that with his premiere. But he's I don't like to just insult people needlessly, because I feel like that it sort of alienates them from potentially coming around, no matter how ignorant they are. But I'm very struck by how much worse he continues to look.
Mm-hmm. Look, every time I've seen him, or somebody send me a link and said, oh, look what Hench is saying, and I've taken a bit of a squeeze, and I go, fuck, that guy looks bad. So...
yeah, the lines on his face and the color of his skin is just... I mean...
Yeah.
Maybe giving the benefit of the doubt, it could be lighting in a poor camera, but I really doubt it.
I mean, I haven't even been doing the carnivore diet for a very long time. Plus, I go late to bed. Many times people find me like I'm putting posts after, like 1 o'clock at night, and they go, "What you in bed?" Some of my subs have noticed me and all that, because I'm a bit of a night owl. So even though I do all these indiscretions, I still fucking look better than the guy. It just tells you how important nutrition is. Sleep is very important. I know. It's something that I need to manage much better. I need to basically take myself out and spank myself. That would basically give me a bit of fun. But anyway, on the other level, it would improve my
or you
attitude.
need to save these things for live stream donations. Spank yourself on camera for $200 donations or whatever. If Vegan Gains can work for it.
Yes,
And that's how carnivore ended on YouTube.
exactly. Yeah, I can't believe it.
Luke, we don't need a meme of that one before you get started.
He'll create one. He'll create one.
Oh, he just posted one.
Did he?
Not relating to that, but he just posted a couple of memes there further down in the chat.
Oh, yes. I just saw that. Yeah, the laughter. Yes, but I suspect he's working on something. He needs to make Uncle Harry, laugh a bit. If you can't laugh at yourself, who can you laugh at? Look, that would help. Eating thyroid would help your thyroid as well. That's eating a specific organ will get you those higher nutrients that organ has, that the equivalent organ requires. It's a well-known fact. Traditional societies did give specific foods for that reason. Yep. Yeah, sort of all that stuff is good stuff. Yes, we know. She's cute. But she's in heat.
She wants to make more butters.
Exactly. She's a menace to the neighborhood.
Yeah, I think we need to schedule an appointment for her soon. She seems to be getting a little bit more intense with it.
What? You're going to do the job on her?
I'm at an appointment to get her spayed.
Get her a boyfriend. Get a bit of excitement in the household. What's wrong with you, Jerry?
Yeah, she's a nice cat, but I don't think there's a huge demand for more orange tabbies.
It's a limited market. Hey, you could send a few down to Shell's way. She'd love them.
If they were spoken for, maybe she could be bred. But no, I don't need that. I grew up in a house with lots of cats. I'm fine with. We're looking for one extra cat to go with Butter, and we'll see how that goes. I think 2 is a good number.
There's a few people here that different sort of stuff. They found the BART in a very different way. Some, on Tristan's side. A lot of them on Tristan's side, which is surprising. But anyway,
Yeah, I originally found Frank from Tristan's channel.
I know you did, Kate. First video on Dr. Pam Popper, vegan MD. Okay. That would have been funny. So your first introduction to Bart was a comedy piece. Oh, look, the guy is a toxic dickhead. There are certain people it's like vegan gains. I mean, Richard, you can't have a conversation with a guy. He'll just go, and I'm check this out. I mean, it's just like the other joke con, because that's what he's, a con artist. They just operate. And when you basically say, let's have a proper sensible conversation, let's look at you put up your 5 best studies, I'll put up my 5 best studies. You read them, I'll read them, and you can actually tell me where mine are wrong, and I can tell you where yours are wrong, and let the public decide who's got the best argument. But they don't do that because they don't want to basically debate, because that's how debates happen. If you see them on screen, what do? They have usually 2 or 3 people on different panels, and people get up, they put their arguments forward, then the next person puts their arguments forward, then the next person puts their arguments forward, and then they ask questions. People question them. And that is how debates are done. Yep. It's not basically, I'm going to scream over you, or I'm going to throw up 100 studies and go, oh, look at this. I mean, I haven't looked at it. I don't even know whether your study is valid or not, or even says what you're claiming it says. And that's most cases, as we've seen, multiple cases. It's just
the,
nonsense.
the paradigm of debate is sort of flawed to me, because it tends to just be like there's a competitive nature to it, where the strongest personality is going to be the one that probably convinces the majority of the people, right?
And not the science. And that's
exactly.
and
And
that is
so,
exactly it.
Without sounding too pretentious, the real version of an informative discussion from two people who disagree is a dialectic, right? It's the mutually pursuing the truth. Rather than trying to prove the other guy wrong, you're trying to get through your own thinking to figure out
Exactly
why that guy thinks what he does. It's not this bashing, I win, you're wrong, I'm right.
Yeah, I mean that's easy to do. You can basically sit there and turn it into a comedy piece where you're screaming at each other. But it's good for a couple of laughs, but nobody's going to get any knowledge, any information out of it. Nothing's going to be proven or understood by anyone. So and Bart says, I've done a couple of these. I'm sick and tired of they're just idiots. If they want to do serious debate, put forward their best arguments. I'll put forward my best arguments. Let's have a proper, serious debate. And he's right.
Right. And it's just the people that approach him from the debate mindset too. So I'm not at all faulting Bart for engaging in that when I say I prefer dialectic, because they're saying I need to prove Bart wrong, rather than saying, why does Bart think what he does? Let's find out. Maybe I'm wrong, right? Exactly. Which is really how you should approach any information that you initially disagree with.
Actually, a real scientist tries to disprove his own theory.
Exactly.
His own hypothesis. That's what a true scientist does. They put up a hypothesis and they go to their friends, what do you think? Then they debate it amongst other academics. What do you think? True scientists would talk about how they traditionally used to do. And people come up with, have you considered this? Have you considered that? And they'll go back to the laboratory. They'll do further experiments. Because in the past, like if you go back to the 1930s, 1940s and all that, like Einstein, people like that were around, most of those people would have published 4, maybe 6, on average, probably about 5 studies in their whole lifetime. 5. We're talking about a handful of studies, some only 3. So it wasn't publish or perish. You did research. You went away, did research. You stayed in the lab for decades sometimes. And when you were certain that you had something to tell the world, then you came out and told the world.
Yeah.
If you didn't have something to tell, your hypothesis failed multiple occasions, then you basically revealed it and said, if you do this, this, and this, and you say that this is a possibility, well, I've actually proven that this isn't. I've disproven my own hypothesis. And that's how science used to work. Unfortunately, nowadays, it doesn't work like that. It's sort of basically, I'm out there trying to increase my prestige, because basically if I can increase my prestige, what I can do is I can basically then get better academic tenure. My university will get a higher academic rating. Yep. So basically it means it can charge more for students.
I'll get more research funding.
Precisely. And the problem is, because it's so money orientated now, the money sort of system where before you would get public funding and you would get paid your job. You didn't have, if you're an academic, you did your job, and you weren't basically by bean counters continually basically assessed whether you were producing enough or not. And so what people have done is, it's easy. They've gone for epidemiology because it's easy science to do, or research to do. It's not science, but easy research to do. It's not accurate research, but it's things that you can basically put on your CV and say, I've done 100 or 10 or 20 or 30 or whatever in my life.
Yeah.
And so it looks better on paper.
Yeah.
And then amongst themselves, their friends cite each other. The good scientists don't get cited, because then it'll expose how shit these people are. There's good science. There's good science out there that has very poor citations. But these guys that know each other, what do? They, especially the plant-based doctors, they continually cite each other's work. Why? To put it up in prominence, because more citations something has, it has more prominence on PubMed, has more prominence, but it's not good science. It's just basically things that have been,
They're gaming the system.
They're gaming the system, exactly. And that's what gives me the shits, because sometimes you go away, you search, and you find this damn obscure page of research which actually shows something that hasn't been as cited as much, but is really good information, But this is the problem, the modern world that we're living. It's like Gerhard Spittler, the Austrian guy. He's got a few citations, but he doesn't have the mountains of citations a lot of these people doing poor science. And he's doing laboratory scientific, really good work to show clear causation of seed oils, how they're causing how the rancidity is causing these oxidative byproducts and all that inside, and how it's damaging your basically arteries in specific ways. And this, all this information isn't being cited as much. So because it doesn't get cited as much, it's not as prominent out there. So when you do a search on something, that guy, you get all these other citations, and that guy's got low citations maybe right at the end of that list. So unless you're prepared to go through multiple pages, most people aren't. They'll go through the first pages, they'll get the confirmation bias, and they'll go from there. Pricks like me usually go right to the end page and then go forward, and they find basically wisdom and a lot of really valuable stuff that doesn't have a lot of citations, but is really good laboratory work. So, that's a trick. That's how I get some of my best stuff. Now you know.
If for anybody that wants to start trolling through medical journals for hours at a time, you've got a leg up on Harry now because you understand his strategy.
That's right. Damn, I gave it away. Look, I don't care. At the end of the day, I want people to basically put this stuff out and inform people, because we want to basically be able to fight against these vegtards, this sort of nonsense and all that. So we need to basically get the message out there. Anyway, mate, what do you think about this sort of stuff?
High rotten meat. I haven't tried it really personally, not on purpose anyway. I do understand what the potential value could be. I think it's something that's hard to point quantifiably to any benefit, because it's a very complex solution, with the culture being present being like the main active benefit, I guess. But there are a lot of anecdotal experiences with high meat, people resolving long-standing issues, people finding that they feel a lot better with it. Mm-hmm. And I think that it's important not to discount those experiences, especially when they're drawing from what seems to be ancestral wisdom and traditional foods. And there are a lot of cultures that did ferment meat. So I think there's probably something to it, but I'm very cautious about how I state my endorsement of it.
Yep. Yeah, I agree with what you've said. That's pretty much how I would view it as well.
I think high liver is probably on my list to try at some point. I just haven't been brave enough to make it for myself yet.
Yeah, it's an acquired taste.
yeah, literally.
I mean, yeah. So it's something that I haven't tried. Something that I haven't tried. High liver.
Yeah,
I've tried meats and stuff like that, but not liver. That's sort of next level. But
I should try it though. I should try it.
Oh, look. There's nothing wrong with trying things. That's your thing. Just on this quickly, Kate. No, I wouldn't go for that complex. K1 is, you don't need K1 clotting. Too much clotting factors. So you don't need that. K2, you only need the MK4. So go for one of the others, or just eat brie. Brie, Gouda, very high in basically or liver, very cheaper, very high in MK4.
Yeah, I've been eating brie pretty consistently for the last month or so, more than I've ever eaten. I like it.
So is it to with spider veins and stuff like that? Look, it does help. MK4 does help. I've known people that have basically reduced their spider veins and all that. So, yep.
Interesting.
In that regard. Look, MK4 and retinol tend to fix a lot of skin issues. So, in that regard, so I mean, cheddar cheese. That was your comment earlier.
Yes, my B complex, B for bathroom.
You're always getting bad ideas, aren't
No more than 4. 3, 2, and I would be under the table. I think for 3. I would be under. I'd be I had a little shot of vodka.
So Jared, when are you visiting?
She was just talking about her husband earlier, which is a total turn off for me.
I'm not going to go there. I'm avoiding the whole subject.
I had a little bit of vodka 2 weeks ago for the first time in 6 months, and it didn't affect me as badly in the moment as it has in the past, which was encouraging to me. I wasn't in a very good mood the next morning. It was only literally 1 ounce shot, but yeah, I felt okay for the evening at least. And there was a specific reason for having it too. It wasn't just a willy-nilly.
We love this one.
The other one that he posted, I think, is some of his best work, actually.
He's got another one? Did I miss that?
It's just like 2 comments away from that one up, I think.
There it is, the other one.
That one is good, though. Bar the Executioner.
Oops. I suspect that's stench. That's something for stench.
Yeah. It could even be more incoherent. I do like that one specifically because I'm partial to milk. It could be like saturated fat causes insulin resistance.
Hey, some of us are babies still. Or we've got a mindset of a baby.
He posted another one.
Oops. He's been a busy lad today. Oops. Nice one. I'll treat him like a goat. Crazy stuff.
I don't think. I'm sorry, I'm just responding to Shell directly, talking in the chat without you bringing it up on screen. I don't think the border is closed right now.
I've just lost my. Oops.
That's what I get for distracting you with Luke's dank memes.
Yeah, I know. Oh, that's okay. That's okay. I'll just. I'll have to just go to the top and then come down until I find something that's changed. So give me a sec. Bear with me. He is. I think that the other vegetards out there would probably beg to differ. That he's probably introduced some more plant foods in his diet. Maybe he's being more omnivorous. But I haven't seen anything of.
Yeah, I heard you introduced some stuff
since I unsubscribed, which was a while back. I haven't seen any of his content since then. I just because I don't do the videos that like Bart does, that the sort of where he looks at it and just gives him a bit of a hard time, a bit of a whipping. So it's not something that I if I've switched off, and I have a bit of that personality. If I switch off somebody, goodbye, that's it. I'm not really interested in wasting my energy, my valuable time with people that have very strange ideas, and he does.
Yeah, I heard he was recently adding in some plant foods or something like that, but I haven't watched a video of his in a long while. When I first unsubscribed, I would once in a while search his live streams just to watch the start of the live stream and see how far he gets before he says something that's just completely ridiculous or engaging in stupid imagined drama. And it's never longer than like 30 seconds. It's like a 2-hour stream, and he like starts on it.
God almighty.
Yeah.
The aliens are going to kill us, or something along those lines.
I mean, it's about as rational as that. Yeah, not quite as grandiose, but
yeah. It's sort of a crackpottery of the highest order. Unfortunately, he's really gone to the dark side. He's really just lost the plot in that regard.
Yes.
So Luke, can you see what Luke says?
Shell's asking what this is. It's
my advice makes absolutely
rolling ends. It's not a joint.
Yes. So my advice makes no difference. That's true. If you're not actually consuming shitloads of alcohol, B vitamins are, ignore that advice completely. You need to be guzzling down before you hit the B complex. Ignore what I just said.
That's just a soft flex on Harry's part, saying unless you're drinking the massive amounts as I am. You don't need B complex unless you can drink like a man, is what Harry's saying.
Look, when it comes to eggs, they don't have a lot of the sort of the omega-3s. They just don't. They have a bit, but it's very small amount that they have, and most of it is actually DHA, but it's a very small amount. There can be differences depending on what the chickens have been eating, so it can vary quite a bit in that regard, and also whether they've actually put omega-3s in their supplements as well, or food, or whatever they've fortified it. So there are so many variations when it comes to eggs. It's not a joke. Now, this guy was actually consuming your regular supermarket eggs, the 25 eggs a day guy. So that's just regular, which is primarily mainly omega-6s primarily. For decades and decades. His father died at 40. His mother died at 76. He was 88. No health problems. So this guy basically outlived both his parents, and he'd been putting down mainly eggs were his main diet for, decades. His doctor knew him for 15 years. His mate knew him for about 20 odd years, and he was eating before that as well. How many decades?
25 eggs a day.
25 eggs a day on
And was that
average.
just a mono diet that he ate, like just mostly just only eggs?
Mostly
or-
eggs, yeah, mostly eggs. I had a few things here or there, but mostly eggs.
I just had some
You
new
know?
a new egg source today.
So
and
he had an addiction on eggs, pretty much.
right.
You know, so
I think
weird.
addictions have to be bad for you, don't they?
Look,
By
it,
their
it,
definition.
it's yeah, I know, but it's usually drugs or other things. But it is a weird thing because there's no other recorded people out there that have done that. You know, I
Right.
mean, most people have a couple of eggs or 3 or 4 or 5 eggs or whatever. This guy's having, you know, massive amounts of eggs day in, day out. You know, and when you look at his lipid profile, when you look at everything, he's really healthy. He's in the range where doctors would say you're healthy. You know, especially when you're getting down to the when you're not sick. So when he was sick, his cholesterol goes up. We know that because for the simple fact the body puts more cholesterol into the blood to basically heal the body and whatever. It's part of the immune response. But when he wasn't sick, he was basically down to one of his recordings was 3.8 millimoles, which is quite low. And let me just see what. And I'll just get the cholesterol converter and test this. So millimoles. What is that? 3.88, which is basically a total cholesterol of 150.
That's low. Well, I guess the recommended range is up to 100 or something like that, isn't it?
So he was basically, his total cholesterol was 150 or 3.88 millimoles, his lowest measurement. He had other measurements that were slightly higher, you know, into the 4 millimoles. And when you get into the 4 millimoles, oops.
Mine was nearly 17.
That's 155 at the bottom. Uh, 4.5 is 174, you know. So basically he was, I mean, most of the time he was in the what we would call around the 4, below or slightly above. So he was anywhere between 150 to 170 total cholesterol. And he was eating massive amounts of eggs and all that. So it's just not even a point of contention. But we don't have anyone else.
Did you see Luke's new thing?
Yeah, I know. I'm still laughing. I'm trying to focus.
Oh
no. Fuck me.
Is that? I assume that's taken from like a headshot of Paul. That's.
Look at the fucking wrinkles around there.
Well, and also that it looks like that's like a professional headshot that he's using. Kind of think like it's not the best photo as a photographer, but yeah, it looks like that's the type of thing he would choose because he feels it shows him well, makes him look good.
Yeah, but you can't hide.
Yeah,
those, all those wrinkles. They just, you just can't hide them. Now, the puffiness and all that could be from a number of different reasons, not only from the diet. You can also, if you're not sleeping well, a number of other issues. So we need to be very careful about that. But when you look at this sort of wrinkling effect, when you compare me and Bart and many other carnivores in our age bracket, so it does show how bad the diet is in that regard. So it is funny. Oh, that's a good one, mate. That's a good one.
and Bart is well disposed to looking relatively ageless as long as he lights himself evenly because of the hairless aesthetic
Yeah,
with
yeah,
the glasses.
that's true as well. You know, I tend to be a bit. I've got a bit poor lighting in here. It sort of comes through sometimes. But I don't give a shit about that. You know, that's why I usually get the camera and I actually bring it closer so people can see that there aren't any of those. You know,
Yeah,
so
no, you both do look good for your age for sure.
so basically, I'm in my mid-50s, and I haven't been, because most of the time I was, I did these sort of lower fat diets or too much vegetable type diets, and then I sort of shifted to keto for a very short period of time, and then I did low carb, so I went back to the Mediterranean diet for a long period of time, a couple of years, and then I came back to a more low carb diet, and then very recently to a carnivore diet. So I can't claim that I have a lot of years in that regard, but for a mid 55-year-old, even a lot of people at my work go, bloody hell, you're getting younger, Harry. So that's the comment, because a lot of those sort of wrinkles and stuff like that, I do a few other things. I have to be honest, with increasing my redox potential. And this is really important to basically, that's why I use niacin. There's a lot of products out there that claim they can increase NAD+, like nicotinamide riboside, NR+, as they call it in many of the companies. Then there's the NMN, and a couple of other things. That's the one that David Sinclair uses, the guy, long, But the difference is David Sinclair's in his, he started in his 30s using it. After your 40s is when something changes. I'll just explain it in a sec. So let's see how he does with NMN in the long run, because he was doing it at a time when he had less of this enzyme called CD38. CD38 actually increases with age. And as it increases with age, you know what it does? It suppresses NAD+. It degrades it. And not only that, it also degrades NMN and NR. So basically, even though you can be supplementing, it may not be getting through because of this enzyme having this effect, let alone NMN, which is more expensive. Why would you bother? It's got a phosphate group which gets cleaved off and ends up going down the same path as NR, which is more cheaper. So if you're going to get any of the two, you'd get an NR, which is cheaper, and basically because they end up the same way. But CD38 as an enzyme, it does basically degrade and increases with age and all that. So what actually inhibits will give you redox potential, increase your NAD+, and also, because fasting will do it, will increase your NAD+, intermittent, exercise and stuff like that. But what they won't do is inhibit CD38. The only thing that will inhibit and slow down CD38 is niacin. Something that I've been doing recently in the last couple of years.
Just supplementing pure niacin?
Yeah. It's what gives you those hot flushes. And I tend to overexpress those hot flushes, which is a real fucking pain in the ass. I love to be able to do it every day for my vanity, to keep myself more youthful and sexier, but I can't. So, because I just can't endure day in, day out. I did it for a month and it nearly fucking killed me every day, getting these hot flushes for about an hour or two. And that was just like I said, fuck, I'd rather basically age than have to put up with this sort of discomfort, And I know that Bart's probably tried it as well, because he knows the experience. But what I do is, because animal products are the highest in niacin, especially pork. That's why I usually say to people, pork is really good for your skin, It's, and that's why, when people sort of bag pork, I go, well, what about the Sardinians, the Okinawans? They live longer. So I don't give a shit whether a rat lives longer or not. I'm looking at these populations that are eating shitloads of pork and living longer. And all our ancestors that cooked heavily in lard, and they had no health issues. That was the primary fat that was used for most of the time. Most people had a pig out the back, for their own larding. So I it's nice, and the hot flushes are, Christina's basically saying.
Samsung says aspirin blocks the flushes.
Yeah, I've heard that, but that it does, and it does actually, not to a, it will do it. But the problem is, it also harms it also harms, the hairline structures inside your lungs. It sort of collapses them.
Cilia.
Cilia. It collapses them and paralyzes them for a couple of hours.
For aspirin?
Yeah. Probably the better thing.
Cigarettes do that as well.
Yeah, exactly. The better thing would be to basically use that bark thing, the supplement, in combination. I probably should try that. I've just been lazy. I haven't. I probably should try and use that supplement together with niacin, and maybe that would do the same trick. Yeah,
like willow bark.
Willow bark. Maybe getting a low dose salicylic acid. A low willow dose, and combine it. I should try that actually. I didn't even think of it. So yeah, maybe I can do niacin every day. I'll have to go and get myself a supplement and give that a try. Vanity is restored again. Thanks, mate.
You're not going to take the stem cell therapy that Bart personally takes.
No, look, if you've got an underlying condition, remember when you upregulate the sirtuin and PARPs pathways with niacin or NMN or whatever, you also basically upregulate stem cell production. So resveratrol will do it for you. Actually, the funny thing is with resveratrol, people pay so much for resveratrols and all these phyto chemicals, but they don't realize, that oleic acid, which is found in tallow, olive oil, and all these other both animal and, because without the seed oil, without the plant-based PUFA that you find in olive oil, that tends to be more problematic. What does it do? It actually has 10 times the effect that resveratrol has. So why not eat just animal fat for the same effect?
The one that he takes.
You know what I'm getting at? So why waste your time with these polyphenols, so to speak?
Right. The one that Bart takes specifically is it's an algae extract.
Yeah, it is. It's a different thing altogether.
Yeah. I'd be interested to get your thoughts on that sometime.
I don't know about it. I haven't looked into it.
Yeah. That's what I mean, I guess.
Yeah. People need to do their own research on that.
Yeah, I mean, I trust Bart's research that if it's something that he feels is going to be
exactly,
and that's substantial evidence for it.
Because he's actually also, he had loss of vision, and he's reversed it. The only thing that he said, and I can remember him saying that it's not targeted. So the organ that's in the worst case, that is what the body will prioritize the stem cell production to. Yes. So even though it increases stem cell production, but that goes for everything, even niacin, even increasing NAD plus, and increasing stem cell production, it doesn't mean it's going to go to everywhere. It's going to go to targeted organs that are more susceptible, that require it more. So in that sort of regard, I would say it would be no different. But
I mean, I guess in theory, by taking it as a regimen for a long time, eventually the organ that's sucking all of that up will get what it needs, and then other tissues start healing.
I would say the difference between the niacin or some of the other, the other compounds that are out there, is that they induce, they basically promote those pathways, the sirtuin pathways, in particular, SIRT1. That's the key, most beneficial pathway. But what this algae thing that Bart uses actually seems to actually increase the level of stem cell production, or encourages far more than most of the other stuff. That's where it's got a benefit. But like everything else, it's not targeted. You know, it doesn't have a targeting, mechanism. So it'll go to the tissue. The body will use those stem cells for the tissue that's in the worst nick. So let's say you've got an eye problem, but you've got basically a bad heart. It'll go to the heart, not to the eye. So you'll end up blind, but without cardiovascular issues or less cardiovascular issues, because that's a priority, or the brain's more a priority, or the liver's a more of a priority. So you may need to be taking it longer until you can get to those less priority, to life and death type organs.
Right. Yeah. I'm very interested, and I'm willing to take Bart's judgment at face value, sort of thing. I'd like to take it as read that it's going to be a benefit if he's read that into it. I actually have a call with him tomorrow because I want to ask him more about the pill they recommend pairing it with that is supposed to decrease fibrin.
Yep.
And just I've read a few anecdotal experiences with people sort of plasma flow, I think it is, having a little bit of an adverse reaction to it in certain doses and needing to sort of slowly add that in. So I'm hoping that he can assuage my skepticism around that one, because I haven't heard that one discussed as much. The actual stem enhance as the pill that releases the stem cells,
that's right.
Personally, I feel pretty confident that it works the way that it's supposed to based on his analysis.
Well, it's worked for him, and it's sort of reversed his it's improved his eyesight and reversed his loss of vision. So it definitely does work. But whether basically because it's not targeted, whether it'll actually fix your ailment or you have to take it for longer, it's all this sort of stuff that is always going to be a bit of an issue. I'm going to backtrack and see whether I can get some stuff. If the gene coding doesn't stop being activated once triggered, look, also casein a negative. Look, some people do have a negative effect due to casein, due to different types of other lectins. And so sometimes it's best to go steak only, remove all that sort of stuff, and try to basically get some organ meats with some nutrient density and try to just correct things before. It's like a leaky gut. You don't want to be putting dairy products, any sort of things. You want to basically be keeping it as clean as possible until you fix that. It's like anything. It takes a while. It doesn't happen overnight. And you have to clean up your diet. You can't supplement yourself to health, basically.
No. Yeah. That's why in the stream with Bart earlier, when I mentioned that I was taking some supplements, I felt the need to state that I don't feel that this is essential to a carnivore diet in general, that this is a targeted approach for specific issues. Harry's smirking at his own joke before the comments even on screen.
Touche. I'm backtracking right now because I know I've missed quite a few. I must be menopausal.
That explains your emotional volatility, Harry.
That's it. It's all over the place. Now you know T1. No, you do not want to use the slow release stuff. You don't want to use that. That will harm your liver, causing liver toxicity. Do not use the slow release. Now, there is some research that shows just in rats, that the extended release doesn't have the same deleterious effects on liver, but I would not rely on that study because slow release, extended release have similar properties, or the way they so I would say, unfortunately you have to put up with the flushes if you want to get the benefit. especially if you're over 40. If you're younger than 40, you can basically use other, NMN, NR, like, that basically David Sinclair uses. But if you're much older, you're going to get more benefit or bang for your bucks from niacin. So I haven't eaten anything, so I'm not prepared to do that experiment. But I may tonight actually do it. Just at the end of my live stream, have a big meal before I start tonight's live stream, and I may
live stream. Do it before the live stream. Have a hot flash on camera,
and basically you will see me as a fucking beetroot for the next 2 hours after. So yeah. Yes, it won't be pretty. Let's put it that way. All my neck around here becomes all inflamed. The entire. It just. But what it is basically, it ends up pushing blood all over the place. So it creates massive vasodilation. It's good at lowering blood pressure as well, but it creates massive and so it gets everywhere. That it's basically having an effect because it actually gets everywhere in the body.
Is that an effect that it'll always will always produce that symptom for you, or is that something that it only does?
Look, it does with me. It does with me. Some people claim, I've got no proof, claim that they can do it, and then over time their body gets used to it, and they don't. But as I said, I did it for a month, and I never saw, it becoming less of a, less pronounced. So and then there are some other people that say, well, with some people they just react more. I don't know why, because nobody's been able to point me to any signs. They just say that other people seem to. Yep, I know. Yes, in your case it's menopausal. In my case it's self-induced. Man, pause. All. Yeah. Well, look, they say that was the point earlier. I will try a different option rather than aspirin. I will try something different and see whether I can avoid that and see how I go. So it may be able to get it to work. Nah, mine's cartography, spatial science. But we do a lot of data analysis and data manipulation and stuff like that. So I understand how data is, what is good data, what is bad data. So
why would that be relevant? Why can't you just go on how you feel?
That's true as well. But at the same time,
I was being sarcastic. Sorry.
Yeah, I know. Well, you could basically just how you feel. Yeah,
I feel like making maps is not important. I feel like harming animals is not important. So
yes. So it's spatial science is part of the engineering sort of branch of knowledge in a sense. So if that sort of makes it clear the other people go into like remote sensing and stuff like that with satellite stuff, and it's a very wide field in terms of others go into oceanographic research, or we've got a lady that used to work for the Australian Navy, and she was an oceanographic surveyor. So basically, the contours of the underwater, so to speak. But she wanted to move back to Tassie, for a family reasons. So, but you can work in all sorts of areas within this field. So
cool.
Yeah.
A slight divergence from nutrition. I find the subject of mapping the oceans very, very interesting. That we still have better maps of the topography of Mars than we do of Earth's oceans, which is pretty cool to think about for an unexplored frontier right here at home. Especially when you consider from an historical archaeological perspective that all of the best preserved archaeological sites on Earth are likely underwater.
Mm-hmm. Oh, there is. There's actually, what was the one off India? There was a very old, and they're talking about it could be as far back, it's so ancient, it could be from the early types of civilizations that emerged on the subcontinent, and that it could basically be also this underwater lost civilization could basically be going right back to when the Mahabharata stories were written, about the sort of that's part of the Hindu tradition. But so it's interesting, that sort of archaeology and all that. Anyway, I'm not going any further back. Let's see what the new stuff is. If I've missed one of your questions and you want me to, and you want to, just re-put it up.
No, just wait up another 5 hours and post it at the start of the Euro live stream.
Hey, I'm a frog. Is that close? You're a troll. Be honest.
That's true. Pepe is a troll.
Love what you are. Don't basically,
Except when you
embrace your trollshipness. I'm missing my other troll. He's not here today.
Luke just went to bed. We need motivational images of Harry giving very pithy, stereotypical advice.
Okay, so the next one will be Harry's menopause adventure. That will be interesting.
Harry's adventures in menopause. My mom successfully made it through menopause. Luckily, that was a rough time for the whole family. Her most of all, I think. But
sorry, T1. Apologize. I love you.
Okay, I'm really enjoying the chat, but I think I need to peel myself away. It's getting to be past midnight.
Yeah, well, we're about 90 minutes away from the end of the program anyway. So,
Usually Luke has some good sense to go to bed at a reasonable hour. When I see him leave, I'll take a look at the time and get surprised.
And wind down.
Yeah.
Oops. Next one. See, T1? Now Christina's actually trolling you. Mate, you're my favourite. You should know that. You're welcome, Christina. Yes, it does. Even my younger sister, who's going through that sort of stage, just very recently, she's noticed as well by doing low carb and all that. She's noticed a lot of difference. So she sometimes does carnivore now and then, like she'll do it for a month. Like every year at the beginning of the year when there's the carnivore challenge, she'll do it. She'll do it a couple of times through the year, but she doesn't stick to it. That's fine, She likes.
It's interesting to me that there seem to be a lot, or I don't know about a lot. There seem to be many, sort of like extreme versions of hormone-related issues for women that are ameliorated by removing at least refined carbohydrates and possibly going low carb. My sister has endometriosis, which apparently responds very well to it. Not that my sister's done that. I just wish that she would. And I know PCOS responds well to it. Anemia responds well to it.
Mm-hmm. Oh, look, it's sort of. You still there? Yep.
Yep.
I thought you froze for a moment.
Might be my Wi-Fi seems to be sort of blipping sometimes.
Okay. Yep. I'll just turn that off for a sec. You want to say anything? Yeah, you completed? Okay, sorry. So what is I'm a little worried about prostaglandins. Why are you? That arise during the flushes, cheese or whatever, doesn't that cause cascade of inflammation, somehow putting regular niacin users in a chronic inflammatory state? No, niacin doesn't actually cause inflammation. It basically may induce a vasodilation, so slightly as initial, like a hormetic effect, but it doesn't last. But it's got wonderful benefits after that, because basically it increases your NAD+, which means you actually increase your energy capacity to heal and repair and do all sorts of things. The whole reason why we break down and decay is because and we lose our youthfulness is because our NAD+ levels decline, and the capacity for our mitochondria to produce sufficient energy to repair and do things declines as well. So, we need to support, because those redoxes, all those redoxes that I talk about, I mean, I didn't want to go into this, but anyway, if you look at the actual mitochondria, all these different stages, these NAD+, NADH, all these sort of redoxes, all they're involved in basically is they're actually they do basically what is called dehydrogenase, which is basically getting rid of hydrogen. So you have, most people don't realize is, so okay, you've got mitochondria, you've got the inner mitochondrial sort of that matrix, that inner part area, and then you've got all these thin electron chain surfaces where you've got all the complexes on, and it's in a number of locations, not only one. So you lose more and more of those over time. So what is the whole purpose? You're taking nutrients, and most people know fats, glucose, whatever. You've got this carbon, and that carbon backbone has got all these hydrogens on it. Okay? Now, the stuff from fat has more hydrogens. The stuff from carbohydrates has not only hydrogens, but also deuterium, bonds on that. Okay? So that whole enzymatic process, so you've got the glycolysis down to pyruvate, that whole thing, which is 10 enzymatic processes, so it starts with glucose 6-phosphate, then fructose 6-phosphate, and on and on and on. And all those stages, as you're going through, you're actually generating water. So metabolic water we're talking about. You're also cleaving off, the body will cleave off, deuteriums, so you can flush them out, and basically putting their hydrogens. So between glucose 6-phosphate and fructose 6-phosphate, that initial stage, you won't get any water in between that. Then after that you do, and before that you could do as well. So what you're doing is you're cleaving off until you get right to the end of pyruvate, where you've got 3 and 3 carbon molecules with phosphate stuck to them, and basically when that cleaving places and you oxidize that, you end up with carbon dioxide, which you breathe out, or you get that, some of that acidity coming out of your urine. Okay, but then you've got the TCA cycle, the citric cycle, or whatever, and that goes through 3 major. There's another 9 enzymatic processes. Again, what are you doing? You're cleaving off dehydrogenase. You're cleaving off all these hydrogens, until you go right back through. And it's the first one is, the citric part, and that's what's called the citric cycle as well. And then there's another stage, I forget, it starts with A, not coming to my head right at the minute. And right at the end is fumarate hydratase, which is another water production stage and all that. So at the end, you're basically cleaving off until you basically end up where you're getting rid of the waste product as carbon dioxide, or the carbons, which you've oxidized, and then you're basically left with, so you don't, through the glycolysis stage and the citric cycle, the Krebs cycle, or whatever you want to fucking call it, the TCA cycle as it's called, you're basically cleaving off to create metabolic water, and then that basically has a certain, those hydrogen ions are then pumped through the complexes, And you've got all these different through the electron chain. You've got a group of complexes here, a group of complexes here in different parts of the mitochondria. So when you damage a lot of these, so let's say you're eating too much sugar, that water ends up having a bit too many deuterium left over. You've eaten too much sugar, you've got too much deuterium in there, so you can't flush it all out, get it all out of the mitochondria. So some of that will end up going through the pumps, the complexes. So those electrons going through, and they're basically redoxes are also basically just handing over an electron, the electron transfer in order to get the pumps to work. And so the pumps are pumping into the intermembrane space to create this gradient of protons that will then be pushed through your nanomotors, your complex 5, to rotate. And basically those electrons are basically energizing the chain so these pumps can work and the nanomotor at the end can rotate 9,000 times a minute to basically, produce energy, ATP synthase. So the key thing is you want more NAD plus, because your electron chain is what's going to produce the majority of your energy. That's why you're cleaving off. You're using these two stages in the matrix to cleave off the hydrogens. So then those ions can be used to run the electron chain and build up the protein gradients to run ATP synthase, because that's where the majority of energy comes from but you have these other enzymatic pathways that do that in the matrix. And then, you push the gradient in that thin space, which is called the inner membrane space. That's a simple way of telling you how food comes in, gets cleaved, these hydrogen ions get cleaved off, and then they get pushed through the complexes. So that's what's happening. Now, to be able to do this, there are all these, between all these enzymatic pathways, there's all these NAD plus NADH, NAD plus NADH. So you need this capacity to basically do that. The less NAD plus you have over time, the less capable capacity to basically both build up the protein gradients to support these different parts of the electron chain, all these complexes that are around there, this part of that thin layer, which we call the electron chain. You got a group of complexes here, group of complexes here, group of complexes down here. There's heaps of them. But if you're basically having too much, let's say, deuterium shit in there, and there's too many neutrons, those neutrons are larger because deuteriums are twice the mass of hydrogen ions. So what happens is they will go through the actual complex 5 and they will damage those nanomotors. They will break them, as they use the terminology breaking the nanomotor. But that's what's actually happening. So the rotor, because it rotates so quickly, 9,000 RPM, that's pretty fast, faster than a sports car. So you don't want to have things that are double the size going through that are going to hit those spikes of the motor and bust them. See, the more you bust them with more sugar and shit like that, the more you become weaker. You see those old people that don't have enough energy because they've destroyed too many of these motors in there. So I'm trying to keep it as really simple. That's why I'm keeping the terminology down, just to understand how these steps take place. So when you hear these things like glycolysis down there, oh yeah, okay, 10 enzymatic steps, take all these hydrogens off. 9 enzymatic step, take additional hydrogens off. We create this water, then we push it through, in terms of the protons and the electrons that we, because basically what a hydrogen is.
So niacin is the best way to serve your body's ability to produce NAD+.
Exactly. It is the best way. And also it inhibits the thing that actually degrades NAD+, which is CD38, which is an enzyme that degrades it. Where the other supplements that people pay shitloads of money doesn't do that, can't do that. doesn't have that capacity to inhibit. It doesn't remove it, because you still need some air. Let's put it this way. If you had, let's say you were able to inhibit, this is why they can't create a medicine at the moment, a drug to inhibit. This is what Sinclair, all that are trying to do. They are trying to create a CD38 inhibitor. But they don't want to over-inhibit, because they know if you over-inhibit, you damage the body. That means your bones can't model properly. Right. Remodeling and proteins start misfolding and all sorts of things. You create an absolute fucking mess. So you can't inhibit 100%. What you want to do is you want to push the levels of CD38, this enzyme, down to youthful levels. That's what niacin can do to some extent. Not 100%, but to some extent.
I've been very skeptical of Sinclair's and also Aubrey de Grey.
Me too.
They're sort of a pair. I've been very skeptical of both of them for a long while, just because neither of them seems to prioritize their diet at all. And Aubrey de Grey, especially on his recent, he was on the Joe Rogan Experience in February or March, I think. And he was just kind of boasting about, his own ability to eat whatever he wants and not suffer any ill consequences for it, and drink all of this beer and these sorts of things. So I'm like, you're supposed to be talking about anti-aging. You're supposed to be talking about preserving your body's ability to do what it does. And you're not at all concerned with getting rid of the bullshit that it shouldn't have to deal with. Like,
do you know what he also takes?
From a first principles perspective, it doesn't make sense to me that neither of them really seem to talk about how to get the unnecessary damage out while also preserving your body's ability to do what it does. Like, that's...
You know what he also does? He takes metformin, which is a mitochondrial poison.
Well, you can't have your blood sugar too high.
Yeah, exactly, to push down the blood sugar.
Yeah.
So, and I'm going, fuck me. And he takes a number of these phytochemicals and stuff like that, a couple of those sort of things too, and certain antioxidants and stuff like that. So, but the problem is, he's basically shifted between, he started this when he was in his 30s, and sort of now he's in his 40s. And so he got the benefit. But as he starts moving from his mid-40s onwards, what will happen is CD38 will start increasing. And those supplements are not going to have the same effect. And so the tale will be told. And he's aware of the CD38 issue, but they can't actually create something without causing a lot of bad side effects. Because most medication, when you create a medication and you put in a dose, it usually has this like global effect, where food, because niacin comes from food, seems to basically have a more regulatory effect. It's a bit like vitamin D, how it regulates the immune system. It doesn't completely suppress macrophage, but it just tempers it down. It sort of regulates in a proper... This is what normal food does, because it has proper signaling characteristics. The problem with medicine, it's something that is not part of our physiology. See, when you put a vitamin D or a niacin or whatever, what the body does is it says, I know that molecule. It transcripts an enzyme and then basically can use those cofactors and then can do proper signaling. But when you put something foreign in that the body doesn't have any genetics for it, so there's no genetic transcription capacity, what it does is then it behaves globally and it suppresses severely, and that can cause a lot. That's why drugs cause so many side effects compared to food, for that reason, for those reasons. And they sort of have to then control your dose and limit your dose, or give you some other bloody medicine to counteract the side effect of that, and then that, and then that. And it's just, you end up with a bag full of medicine, and it's what these people are promoting, a bag full of medicine for longevity. And if you can't afford it, bad luck. But that's the message. If you read between the lines, that's the message.
And I sort of wonder, what the results of these medications will actually be, of course.
Long term.
They may achieve, they may achieve the results that they're looking for in terms of ceasing the aging process. But I sort of wonder if if they have other metabolic consequences, if you're going to actually feel youthful, or if you're going to actually, be more energized while having a longer life. Because if not, that doesn't seem very worth it.
Precisely, and these are the questions that haven't been answered. And if you also have other side effects, I mean, we can prolong your life, but if you basically are decrepit or in pain or whatever, is that a life worth living? So,
Yeah.
so that these are the sort of things that I sort of there's a lot of question marks. It doesn't mean that he doesn't have some of the look. Without David Sinclair, I wouldn't have realised the importance of dealing with NAD plus or dealing with NAD as an issue. So he actually opened my eyes, but then I went beyond him and realised, hold on, this doesn't actually go proper through. If I'm my mid-50s, well, shit, this isn't going to really work for me because I'm fighting against this other enzyme that's trying to basically degrade my NAD+. So why am I wasting so much money on expensive supplements? And I wasn't seeing really much results. And then when I shifted to niacin, I started really seeing results. And I'm going, ooh. And then I found out why. Because it had also, initially I didn't know, and I was using it for cardiovascular reasons and other things, and I didn't really know why. Now, there is another thing that you could do, get a low dose of niacin, suppress slightly CD38, and then combine it with NMN or NR as a combo to basically give yourself more without getting the hot flushes, or do you know what I mean? There is an approach that you could take that way, but still, I sort of haven't bothered because it's just an expensive, and NMN is very expensive. It tends to be we're talking about thousands of dollars a year to basically get the stuff, where niacin is much cheaper. So, and I'm not convinced, whether putting until your body, because your body's degrading, it's been assaulted continuously by many things. Is it a good idea to be pushing up these redoxes and overloading certain parts if other things are not, I think you have to synergistically try to both heal a lot of things, eat a number of varied things, gelatinous material, all these different things, glycine, look after your methylation cycle with choline. You really have to cover a lot of things in order to basically get things to work a bit better and become just incrementally the whole body sort of move up in a sense, rather than try to target one specific thing like drugs do and stuff like that. I'm not convinced that that's the best or the smartest way of going about it.
No, I think
I'm to be convinced.
You're targeting symptoms rather than treating causes.
Yeah, exactly. It seems a bit like that, and that's what I sort of find.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I need to go to bed. That's what I said 20 minutes ago. And then you started talking about niacin and longevity. And now
Well, the funny thing is now it's 3:00. It's past my time as well. So I will basically give it we'll stop here. We probably went a bit too far with other things.
No, that was good. Anybody who rewatches this is going to be glad we went there.
Yeah. So because with my sort of time schedule, when I do my videos on these different subjects, it could be a long wait. So yes, getting a few inside pointers much earlier is probably helpful for people. Mate, look, I appreciate you being here, as always.
Yeah, I appreciate getting to be here, Harry. I feel like
thanks for the entertainment and
holding on as best as I can to this torrent of information that's streaming by all the time when I'm streaming with you. It's
well, I try to
grasping handfuls of water out of the river of knowledge.
Well, I try to keep it. Sometimes I'm starting something that I'm translating inside my head and go, no, that's too complicated. Just make it simpler, and I'm trying to keep it as simple as possible. Because it's easy to just to throw big words out there like a lot of people do and confuse people altogether. And I hope that people now understand how the mitochondria work inside this sort of cleaving off, these sort of 10, 9. So remember 10, 9 enzymatic pathways to basically just create this extra sort of water. You get a bit of energy, a bit of ATP from those processes, but primarily you're creating that water to be able to pump through those pumps and basically generate ATP in greater numbers, in greater quantity. So it's that sort of site. And then that if you're eating too much carbohydrate and you've got more and your body hasn't got the ability to deplete it, get rid of it, cleave it off and get rid of it as a waste product, the deuterium, some of it can remain within that matrix of that water and end up going through those pumps and then trying to get through the damn the nanomotor and breaking it and damaging it. So next week I'll try and talk about some repair mechanisms and some things that you can do to basically improve not only the redox potential but also to repair and correct and these nano machines plus other wonderful interesting things about improving the biosynthesis of more mitochondria. That'll be next week. You've had enough for this week, and then next we'll go next week.
I'll look forward to that. I'm always on board for learning a bit more about how to increase my body's ability to heal damage. That's something that is very relevant for me.
We will. Thanks, Kate. Always good to get a love heart right at the end.
That's a good note to leave on.
Exactly. Yeah, I think so. I think that was intended for both of us.
I think so. She said all.
Exactly. All of us. God, she's so generous.
Have a great week, all Harrys.
All Harrys, yeah. There's multiple clones of me. The world will not be the same.
All right. Well, have a good week, Harry.
Thanks, mate.
Thank you as always for having me.
You're welcome.
I'll see you next week.
See you,
everybody.
Mate. Well, it's back to me, your miserable single Harry. I haven't cloned myself yet. And we're pretty much, over 3 hours. So I need to keep an eye on not going too high because eventually I'll get myself into trouble through the week because I've still got the Euro live one tonight. And then after that, I've got basically... through the week, I need to maintain those hours with StreamYard because the free hours that they give me. So I need to be a bit careful on that front. Shit, I forgot to drink my coffee. Anyway, I'll have to make a new one. It's too cold now. Just remembered. Actually, fuck that. I'll actually have some food. It's about time. It's 1:30 or 25 to. So by 2 o'clock, so it's about 2 hours later than my usual time when I have food. But anyway, we've extended it up to 20 odd hours now. Fasting, that is. But yeah. Look, thanks, guys. Take care. Come back. Ask me more. Studies. Who's this? Stam Sung also study linking neural death to niacin supplements. Yeah, they're the slow release stuff. It has an effect, and the high doses. I only take 250 milligrams, or recommend 200 over 300. Never go over 300. A lot of these other people are doing 1,000 and all that. And what it does, actually, it inhibits a number of pathways when you get over 500. So it's a bad thing. And a lot of people are doing like 1,000, 2,000. That's just stupid. you know. And the other thing that is that's important is it bleeds through the methyl groups. That's another thing that I didn't mention. I should have mentioned. So when you have over 300 in particular, you start bleeding through your methyl donors. You can take supplemental, stuff in terms of choline supplements in that regard, or more riboflavin to increase the other pathway, strengthen the other pathway. So that's the thing you can do to mitigate the loss of methyl donors. And that's what's happening. You're losing methyl donors, you're increasing homocysteine. So you're improving one, but you're actually affecting the other. That's the sort of side effect. That's why I never recommend high doses. And if you've known from my previous vids, I always say 250, not above 250, and usually recommend much lower than that in terms of the levels. 50, I usually say to people who've actually, I can't remember who actually asked me, but I said to that person, 50, then go to 100, and then if, consider anything above that. So I would not go higher than that. And I get enough basically in terms of methyl donors with basically choline supplement. That's taurine. The choline supplement. And basically it's a non-issue in that regard. So niacin will bleed through methyl donors. I should have mentioned that earlier, sorry. Sometimes I get too caught up in that regard. You've been doing that? Oh, shit. That is really high, mate. God almighty, you do not want to be doing that. You'll be burning through all your methyl donors, and it doesn't matter whether it's NR, NM, NMN, or any of that sort of stuff. Any of that will burn through your methyl donors. So it doesn't matter whether it's M&M, NR, nicotinamide riboside, doesn't matter. It will burn through methyl donors. So please get yourself on a choline supplement and get yourself back down to 250 milligrams. You don't need that level. That's just ridiculous, because at the same time, it actually affects a whole lot of different other pathways in terms of your, proper functioning, in terms of, ketone production, in terms of proper gluconeogenesis, and all the proper functioning of these can be affected from high doses. I don't know who told you to get onto those levels, but they are completely a crackpot if they did tell you that. That is really fucking dangerous. And I get a pharmaceutical grade, which is a pharmacist thing. Only pharmacists produce it, and it's doctors hand it out, and it's 250 milligrams, no more than that. They, like my pharmacists down here, they in the city, will not sell above 250 because they consider it not a good thing. So look, I know there are some people out there, they want to make money and they want to push. They say a little is good, a lot is better. No, it's not. It's like anything, too much of anything. Yet, yeah, I've heard of that. What is it called? The tetra something glycine, which is a methyl donor. I can't even fucking pronounce it, but I know the stuff you're talking about. Look, you can use that. Yeah, you can use that. You can use basically also choline supplement. Either one will do as a methyl donor. You don't have to use, that's more expensive. Choline is much cheaper in that regard. But you definitely don't want those high doses. Just nah. And I think it's about, what is it, about 250 for each 100 for that, for TMG. I think it's 100 per 200 or 250. I can't remember exactly. So, you know, if you're basically, that's it's about 1200 milligrams of TMG to basically level that out. But that's just too bloody high. Yeah, thanks. That's exactly it. Tetramethyl. Yeah. So yeah, you definitely don't want to be that high. That's really crazy levels, guys. You do not want it that high. It's actually trimethylglycine, you know. So it's yes, but yeah, please taper it back down to 300. You don't want to be. You need to be a tenth of that. You know, that's where you need to be to, you know, because it's just too damn high. Because even when you're taking this massive amount of methyl donor, you know, it creates a lot of imbalances. You know, at 300 with at the TMG, like 100 in that regard, you'd be taking about 150 milligrams of TMG, or you could take something which is cheaper, which is basically, you know, a gram of choline, and that will actually even do a better results because it's a gram of choline, which is a cheap supplement, as a gram of choline as a methyl donor. So it's a much better way to do it. Yep. Yeah. Look. Yeah. You're welcome. You know. Yeah. Please bring it down. You know, because you have to remember that your redox capacity has a certain threshold. You don't want to be overloading that, because it's just not a good idea in that regard to do that sort of stuff. I know a lot of people out there promote these really high doses and all that, and I'm going, you know, even 250 is not a natural dose. It's a therapeutic dose. 3,000 is beyond therapeutic dose, basically, in my book anyway. So yeah, take care, mate. Make adjustments, and you'll feel much better for it in the long run. So look, guys, it's 1:15. Fuck. So I better go, and I will see you all next week. Take care. Appreciate you guys being here. Anyway, see you all, and until for those who are within the Eurasia, Australasian sort of region, I'll see you guys tonight. Those from North America and other parts of the world who are going to be sleeping, I will see you guys next week. Take care.